The moment Adrian Voss asked, "Who touched you?" 3 words that would ignite a war, I knew my quiet life was over. I was just a maid trying to disappear, hiding from a monster who wanted to take my baby. But when the city's most dangerous crime boss decided I was worth protecting, everything exploded. What started as survival became something far more dangerous than anything I'd run from. This is the story of how I went from invisible to untouchable. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The marble floors of the Voss mansion gleamed under the afternoon sun, reflecting light that seemed too pure for a house built on blood money. Lena Hayes kept her eyes down as she pushed the cleaning cart down the west corridor, her movements practiced and invisible. That was the key to survival here. Be invisible, be forgettable, be nothing worth noticing. She'd perfected the art over 8 months. The mansion sprawled across 3 acres of prime real estate, a fortress disguised as luxury. 15 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, a wine cellar that doubled as a panic room, and security systems that could track a housefly. Lena knew every corner, every blind spot, every exit. She'd memorized them all within her first week. Not because she planned to steal anything, because she might need to run. "Lena," the head housekeeper's voice cut through her thoughts. Mrs. Chen stood at the end of the hallway, her severe bun pulled so tight it looked painful. Mr. Voss's study, immediately. Lena's heart stuttered. In 8 months, she'd never been called to Adrian Voss's private study. She'd barely seen the man himself, just glimpses in hallways, the back of his head in his armored car, his shadow passing through rooms she'd just cleaned. That was exactly how she'd wanted it. "Is something wrong?" Lena's voice came out steadier than she felt. "The crystal decanter. Someone broke it." Mrs. Chen's expression remained neutral, but her eyes carried a warning. "He wants to speak to whoever cleaned his study yesterday." Lena's mind raced. She'd cleaned that study. She'd been careful, meticulous. The decanter had been perfectly intact when she'd dusted around it, she was certain. But in a house like this, certainty meant nothing. Blame fell where it was convenient. "I understand." Lena smoothed her black uniform dress, checking that her name tag sat straight. Her hands trembled slightly, and she forced them still. The walk to Adrian Voss's study felt like an execution march. She'd heard the stories, of course. Everyone in the city had. Adrian Voss had built an empire from the ashes of 3 rival families, consolidating power through a combination of brutal efficiency and strategic brilliance that had made him untouchable by the time he was 30. He didn't just control the underground, he owned it, from the docks to the diamond district. People who crossed him disappeared. People who stole from him wished they'd disappeared. And Lena was about to walk into his private study, accused of breaking a piece of crystal that probably cost more than she'd earned in her entire life. She knocked on the heavy oak door, her knuckles barely making a sound. "Enter!" The voice was deep, controlled, carrying an authority that didn't need volume. Lena pushed open the door and stepped into the study, keeping her eyes respectfully lowered. The room smelled of leather and expensive whiskey, with undertones of the cedar wood paneling that covered the walls. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 2 walls, filled with first editions and leather-bound volumes that had probably never been read. Adrian Voss sat behind a massive mahogany desk, his posture relaxed but radiating the kind of power that made the air feel heavy. Lena could feel his gaze on her, even with her eyes down, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Look at me." It wasn't a request. Lena raised her eyes and immediately understood why people feared this man. Adrian Voss was 42, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples, and eyes the color of winter ice. His features were sharp, aristocratic, arranged in an expression of calculated neutrality that revealed nothing. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car, before she'd sold it to disappear. But it wasn't his appearance that unsettled her. It was the intelligence in those cold eyes, the sense that he could read every secret she desperately tried to hide. "You cleaned this room yesterday." Not a question. "Yes, sir." "And the decanter?" He gestured to the bar cart where the crystal pieces had been carefully arranged, clearly shattered but preserved as evidence. Lena's throat tightened. "It was intact when I finished, sir. I was very careful." "I know." The response caught her off guard. She blinked, uncertain. Adrian stood, moving around the desk with a predator's grace. He was tall, easily 6'2", and the way he moved suggested someone comfortable with violence, even in a $1,000 suit. Marcus Chen broke it this morning during a meeting. He was upset about a shipment delay. Adrian picked up one of the crystal shards, studying it with apparent disinterest. His mother seems to think blaming the maid is preferable to admitting her son throws tantrums. Relief flooded through Lena so suddenly her knees weakened. I see. Do you? Adrian set down the crystal and turned his full attention to her. Because I don't think you do. I don't think you understand that in this house, I know everything that happens. Every door that opens. Every conversation in every hallway. Every... He paused, those ice-blue eyes boring into hers. Lie. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. Did he know? About Marcus? About why she was really here? I'm sorry, sir, I don't... You've worked here 8 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days. Adrian circled her slowly, speaking in that same controlled tone. You're always early, never late. You volunteer for extra shifts. You eat lunch alone in the kitchen. You've never accepted a ride home from the other staff. You pay cash for everything. You have no social media presence, no bank accounts, no credit cards, no driver's license on file. Each fact landed like a physical blow. Lena stood frozen, her carefully constructed invisible life disintegrating under his gaze. You're a ghost, Lena Hayes, or trying to be. Adrian stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. The question is why? I prefer my privacy, sir. Her voice barely worked. Privacy is having an unlisted number. What you have is erasure. He tilted his head slightly. People don't erase themselves for no reason. They do it because they're running. From the law. He paused. Or from someone who scares them more than I do. Lena's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She'd been so careful. How had he... Did you think I hire people without knowing exactly who they are? Something that might have been amusement flickered across his expression. I run background checks on everyone who enters my home. Yours came back almost completely blank. That's a skill in itself. If you're going to fire me, I'm not. Adrian returned to his desk, settling into his chair with casual authority. I'm telling you that I know you're hiding. I don't care what from, as long as it doesn't threaten my business or my home. You do good work. You're trustworthy. That's rare. Lena didn't know what to say. The relief warred with terror. He knew she was hiding, even if he didn't know the details. That made her vulnerable in a different way. However, Adrian's tone shifted, gaining an edge. Understand this. Whatever you're running from, if it shows up on my doorstep, it becomes my problem. And I eliminate my problems permanently. Yes, sir. Good. You're dismissed. Lena turned to leave, her legs shaky beneath her. And Lena? Adrian's voice stopped her at the door. The next time someone in this house tries to blame you for their mistakes, you tell me directly. I don't tolerate people who abuse their positions. She glanced back, surprised by the statement. Adrian was already focused on the papers on his desk, effectively dismissing her. Lena fled the study, her heart still racing. She'd survived the encounter, but something had fundamentally shifted. Adrian Voss knew she existed now, really existed, not just as another faceless member of the staff. And in a house built on secrets and power, being noticed could be fatal. But the staff quarters were modest compared to the mansion itself, a separate wing with small functional rooms that housed the live-in employees. Lena's room was barely large enough for a twin bed, a narrow dresser, and a tiny attached bathroom, but it had a lock on the door and a window that faced the service road. Most importantly, it was safe. She locked the door behind her and sank onto the bed, pressing her palms against her eyes. Her hands still trembled from the encounter. He knows you're hiding. The words echoed in her mind. 8 months of careful anonymity, and Adrian Voss had seen through it in minutes. How long before he dug deeper? Before he found out about Daniel? About the real reason she'd disappeared? Lena's phone buzzed, a cheap prepaid model she replaced every few months. Only one person had the number. Hey, Mama. The voice on the other end was warm, maternal. Elena Rodriguez had been Lena's mentor in nursing school, the closest thing to family she had left. Hi, Elena. Lena forced normalcy into her voice. How's my godson? Perfect. Growing too fast. Lena's expression softened. He asked about the ducks again yesterday. You're still reading him that book? Elena laughed. He's obsessed. Listen, I was thinking, maybe this weekend you could actually visit. I hate these phone calls. I want to squeeze that baby. I know, soon. The same lie Lena had been telling for months. Lena. Elena's tone shifted, gentle but firm. You can't hide forever. Eventually, I have to go. There's someone at the door. There's no one at the door. I'll call you tomorrow. Kiss Mateo for me. Lena hung up before Elena could protest. Guilt twisted in her stomach, but the alternative was worse. The less Elena knew about where she really was, the safer everyone would be. Her son, 16 months old, perfect and innocent, was hidden away in Elena's home 3 states away, officially her nephew, while his mother got back on her feet. The story was plausible enough. Elena was retired now, loved having a baby in the house, and asked no questions Lena couldn't answer. But Lena knew the truth. She wasn't getting back on her feet. She was hiding her son from his father. Marcus Chen, Adrian Voss's business associate, Mrs. Chen's golden child, and the man who'd nearly killed Lena the night she told him she was pregnant. The same man who'd sworn he'd take their child and make sure Lena never saw him again if she didn't do exactly what he wanted, so she'd run. Disappeared from her life as a neonatal nurse at Metro General, from her apartment, from everyone who knew her. She'd changed her name, erased her digital footprint, and found the one place Marcus would never think to look for her, working as a maid in his mother's employer's house. It had been insane, reckless, but also brilliant in its simplicity. Marcus never visited the mansion. He conducted business elsewhere, keeping his association with Adrian Voss at arm's length. His mother never mentioned the staff to him. And Lena had transformed herself from a confident, skilled professional into a quiet, invisible domestic worker. For 8 months, it had worked perfectly. Until today, when Adrian Voss had looked at her and seen her. The next morning started like any other. Lena arrived in the kitchen at 5:30 before most of the staff and began her usual routine. Clean the main dining room, polish the silver, prepare the breakfast service area, then move through the assigned rooms on her cleaning schedule. But something felt different. The other staff members kept glancing at her, whispering. When she entered the kitchen, conversation stopped. The cook, a gruff man named Santos who rarely spoke to anyone, actually nodded at her. What? Lena finally asked Maria, one of the other maids. Maria leaned in conspiratorially. Mr. Voss fired Marcus Chen last night. His mother, too. Lena's blood turned to ice. What? Nobody knows why, but Mrs. Chen was called to his office around 8, and by 9, security was escorting both of them out. Marcus was screaming about lawyers and respect. Maria's eyes gleamed with gossip. Apparently, Mr. Voss told him he doesn't tolerate people who lie to him. The room tilted slightly. Lena gripped the counter. You okay? Maria touched her arm. You look pale. I'm fine, just surprised. Lena forced herself to breathe normally. They'd been here for years. That's what makes it crazy. Mr. Voss doesn't fire people lightly. Whatever Marcus did, it must have been serious. Lena excused herself, heading for the bathroom before anyone could see her panic. She locked herself in a stall, pressing her forehead against the cool metal door. Marcus was gone. Fired. Escorted out. Because of the decanter? Because he'd lied about it? Or because Adrian Voss had noticed Lena's reaction to Marcus's name, to his mother, and decided to dig deeper into what the Chens had been hiding? No, that was paranoid. Adrian had said it himself. He didn't tolerate people who lied or abused their positions. Marcus breaking the decanter and letting his mother blame a maid fit that perfectly. It didn't mean Adrian knew anything else. It didn't mean he'd connected her to Marcus. It didn't mean... Lena? A knock on the bathroom door. You in here? Just a minute. She splashed cold water on her face, checked her reflection. Pale but composed. Normal enough. When she emerged, she found Santos waiting in the hallway. His weathered face was serious. Mr. Voss wants to see you. His study. Now. A terror and confusion warred in her chest. Did he say why? Never does. Santos's expression softened slightly. Look, I don't know what's going on, but word of advice? That man respects honesty. Whatever he asks you, don't lie. He always knows. Adrian's study looked different in the morning light. Less ominous, more like the office of a successful businessman than a crime lord's sanctum. He sat at his desk reviewing documents, a cup of black coffee at his elbow. Sit. He gestured to the chair across from him without looking up. Lena sat, her hands folded in her lap to hide their shaking. Adrian finished reading whatever he was reviewing, signed it with a heavy fountain pen, then set it aside. When he finally looked at her, his expression was unreadable. Marcus Chen was stealing from me. He stated it simply, without emotion. Small amounts, carefully hidden in the shipping manifests. He'd been doing it for almost 2 years. Lena said nothing, uncertain where this was going. I didn't know until yesterday. Want to guess how I found out? She shook her head. You. Adrian leaned back in his chair. Your reaction when I mentioned his name. The way you held yourself when I said his mother was trying to blame you. There was fear there. Real fear. Not of losing your job. Not of me. His eyes narrowed. Fear of him. Sir, Let me finish. The command was quiet but absolute. That fear made me curious. So I looked deeper into Marcus Chen. His finances, his activities, his associates, and I found the theft. I also found something else. Adrian pulled a folder from his desk drawer and slid it across to her. Lena's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were photographs, documents, medical records. Her medical records. From the night she'd fled to the emergency room 3 states away, using a false name, after Marcus had put his hands around her throat and squeezed until she'd blacked out. The night she'd been 12 weeks pregnant and terrified the baby hadn't survived. You were a neonatal nurse at Metro General Hospital. Adrian's voice was a matter of fact, reciting information like a grocery list. Excellent reputation, loved by your colleagues. Then 16 months ago you disappeared, filed no missing person report, no activity on your accounts. Gone. Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 3 days before you disappeared, you were treated at a hospital 200 miles away for strangulation injuries and a pregnancy-related emergency. You refused to file a police report, gave a false name, paid cash. Adrian paused. The attending physician noted suspected domestic violence. How did you... I have resources. Adrian's expression didn't change. What I don't have is the complete picture. The medical records don't show who hurt you. Your employment records don't show why you ran. But I can guess. He stood moving to the window that overlooked the grounds. Marcus Chen has a history of violence against women. Sealed juvenile records. A sexual assault allegation in college that his family made disappear. 2 ex-girlfriends who left the city and won't discuss him. Adrian turned back to face her. You were involved with him. It wasn't a question, but Lena answered anyway. Yes. He hurt you. Yes. And now you're hiding from him. Lena's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Yes. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Lena waited for the axe to fall, for Adrian to tell her she'd brought danger to his door, that she had to leave, that her desperate gamble had failed. Instead, he asked, "Where's your child?" The question punched the air from her lungs. What? The pregnancy. Where's the baby? How do you know I didn't... She couldn't finish the sentence. Because I had someone watch Marcus after I fired him yesterday. He went directly to a private investigator, showed him a photo of a baby, your baby. Adrian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He's looking for you, and now that he's not working for me, he has time to search. Lena stood abruptly, panic flooding her system. I have to leave. I have to get to my son before... Sit down. You don't understand. He'll... Sit down. Adrian's voice cracked like a whip, freezing her mid-step. If you run now, panicked and unprepared, he'll find you in 48 hours. Is that what you want? No, but... Then sit down and listen. Lena sank back into the chair, her entire body trembling. Everything was falling apart. 8 months of careful planning, destroyed in 2 days. Adrian returned to his desk, his movements deliberate and controlled. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want the truth. Did you know Marcus worked for me when you took this job? Yes. His eyebrows rose slightly, the first real reaction she'd seen from him. You walked into my house knowing your abuser was associated with me. He never came here. His mother never talked about staff. I thought, Lena's voice cracked. I thought it was the perfect hiding place. Somewhere he'd never look. Bold, Adrian studied her with renewed interest. Insane, but bold. I had nowhere else to go. My family's gone. My friends couldn't help. And Marcus? She forced herself to continue. He has money, connections, lawyers. He swore if I tried to keep the baby from him, he'd prove I was unfit and take full custody. He said he'd make sure I never saw my son again. So you disappeared. I gave birth in a hospital under a false name, left my son with my friend, created a new identity. Lena met his eyes, past fear now, into desperate honesty. I'm not a criminal, Mr. Voss. I'm not running from the law. I'm just a mother trying to protect her child from a dangerous man. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, What's your son's name? Matteo. How old? 16 months. And Marcus knows about him? He knows I was pregnant. He told me to get an abortion. When I refused, She touched her throat reflexively, remembering. He made his position clear. I left before he could find out I'd actually had the baby. But now he knows. The private investigator will find your friend within a week if Marcus is willing to spend money, which he is, especially now that I've fired him. He'll want revenge, and he'll see you as the cause. Adrian's assessment was brutal but accurate. You're out of time, Lena. She knew. She'd known the moment Maria mentioned Marcus being fired. The careful house of cards she'd built was collapsing, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I'll resign today, leave tonight, disappear again. Even as she said it, Lena knew how futile it sounded. Maybe if that won't work. Then what do you suggest? Because I can't. Her voice broke. I can't let him take my baby. I'd rather die. Adrian regarded her steadily, those ice blue eyes calculating. There is one option. What? You let me handle Marcus Chen. Lena blinked. Don't understand. I'm saying that Marcus Chen just became my problem. He stole from me, which is unforgivable, but more than that. Adrian's expression hardened into something dangerous. He put his hands on someone under my roof. That makes it personal. I'm not under your protection. I'm just a maid. You work in my house. You eat meals prepared in my kitchen. You sleep under my roof. Adrian's tone was absolute. That makes you mine to protect. It's a matter of principle. The possessiveness in his words should have frightened her. Instead, for the first time in 16 months, Lena felt something that resembled hope. What are you offering? A deal. Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his desk. I will make Marcus Chen's life very difficult. I will ensure he never comes near you or your son. In return, you do something for me. Lena's stomach dropped. What? You become my fiancé. The world stopped spinning. I'm sorry, what? Publicly. A performance. Adrian's expression didn't change, as though he'd just suggested she work overtime, not enter a fake engagement with a crime boss. I need a woman on my arm for certain events. Someone intelligent, presentable, and trustworthy. You need protection from a violent man with resources. We help each other. You want me to pretend to be engaged to you? Yes. Why? Because the woman I was seeing before leaked details about my business to a competitor. She's been eliminated as a threat, but it's left me in an awkward position socially. Adrian's tone was businesslike, discussing his ex's betrayal like a failed merger. The families I work with value stability. They trust men with wives, with commitments. A solitary bachelor makes them nervous. So get a real fiancé? I don't trust easily. You've proven yourself trustworthy, even under extreme pressure. You're also desperate enough to agree without asking for more than I'm willing to give. His bluntness was almost refreshing. It's a practical arrangement. Lena's mind reeled. And if I say no? Then you're free to leave and handle Marcus on your own. I'll provide a severance package and a good reference. But understand that once you walk out that door, my protection ends. You'll be alone again. Alone. With Marcus hunting her. With no resources. No plan. What would this arrangement entail exactly? You move into the main house. Your son comes here. I'll have a nursery prepared and hire appropriate staff. You'll attend events with me as needed, behave as an affectionate partner in public, and maintain the illusion. Adrian ticked off items like a checklist. In private, we maintain professional boundaries, separate rooms, no expectations beyond the performance. For how long? Until Marcus Chen is no longer a threat. 6 months minimum, possibly longer depending on circumstances. And then? Then we stage a quiet, amicable separation. You'll leave with enough money to start over anywhere you choose, a clean identity if you want one, and legal guarantees that Marcus can never file for custody of your son. It was insane, preposterous, the kind of offer that existed only in movies, but Lena had learned that desperate times called for desperate measures. If I agree, I want my son here within 24 hours. 12. I want it in writing, all of it, the protection, the financial settlement, the custody guarantees. My lawyer will draw up a contract this afternoon. I want to be able to leave if you become violent or threatening. Adrian's eyes flashed. I don't hurt women, ever. But yes, that clause will be included. Lena took a shaky breath. Every instinct screamed that this was crazy, that accepting would be jumping from one dangerous situation into another. Adrian Voss was a crime boss, a killer, a man who'd just admitted to eliminating his ex-girlfriend as a threat. But he was also offering her the one thing she'd been unable to achieve on her own, safety for her son. I need time to think. You have 5 minutes. Adrian checked his watch. Marcus's private investigator is efficient. Every hour you delay is an hour closer to him finding your son. The manipulation was obvious, but that didn't make it less effective. Lena thought of Mateo, his giggle, his tiny hands, the way he'd started taking wobbly steps last month. She thought of Marcus finding him, taking him, raising him to be another violent man who thought power came from fear. She met Adrian's gaze squarely. I want one more thing. Name it. I want to keep working. Not as a maid, but I want to work. I was a neonatal nurse. I was good at it. Pride crept into her voice. I don't want to just be decoration on your arm. I want purpose. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Respect, maybe, or acknowledgement. I'll arrange a position at Metro General under your new identity. Part-time, flexible hours. Then we have a deal. Adrian stood, extending his hand across the desk. Welcome to your new life, fiancé. Lena shook his hand, his grip firm and warm. The moment their hands touched, she felt the weight of what she'd just agreed to settle over her shoulders. She'd made a deal with the devil. Now she just had to survive it. The 12 hours that followed were a whirlwind. Adrian's lawyer, a sharp woman named Diana Chen, no relation to Marcus, thankfully, arrived with a contract that was surprisingly fair. Everything Adrian promised was in writing, with additional clauses protecting Lena's interests that she hadn't even thought to request. Diana explained each section thoroughly, answered every question, and seemed genuinely pleased when Lena insisted on several modifications. It's refreshing, Diana said as they finalized the changes. Most of Adrian's associates just sign whatever he puts in front of them. I'm not most associates. No, you're definitely not. Diana's smile was approving. He chose well. By evening, a team of decorators was transforming one of the mansion's guest suites into a master bedroom for Lena. Another room down the hall was being converted into a nursery that looked like something from a designer magazine. White furniture, soft gray walls, every possible safety feature and luxury accessory. Lena stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. Too much? Adrian appeared beside her, hands in his pockets. It's beautiful, but he's a baby. He doesn't need... He's my fiancé's son, which means he gets the best. Adrian's tone suggested this wasn't negotiable. Besides, you're going to want him safe and comfortable here. This helps. Lena supposed he had a point. Elena's bringing him tomorrow morning. She has questions. Tell her whatever you need to, or tell her nothing. Your choice. I'll tell her the truth, most of it. Lena turned to face him. She deserves that much. Loyal. Adrian nodded approvingly. That's good. Loyalty is valuable. Is that why you're doing this? Because you value loyalty? I'm doing this because Marcus Chen stole from me and needs to be taught a lesson. You're the tool I'm using to deliver that lesson. His bluntness was jarring. Don't romanticize it, Lena. This is business. Right, business. She crossed her arms. So when do we start this performance? Tonight. I have a dinner with some associates. You'll accompany me. tonight, but we don't have time for you to adjust gradually. Marcus will hear you're out of the staff quarters by tomorrow. We need to control the narrative before he does. Adrian checked his watch. You have 2 hours. There's a dress in your room and someone coming to help you prepare. I don't even know how to act like your fiancé. Be yourself, just more polished. And touch me occasionally. Nothing excessive, just natural affection. He demonstrated by briefly touching her lower back, the contact professional but possessive. Like that, enough to look real. Lena shivered at the touch, her body's reaction confusing. This was pretend, business, nothing more. What if I mess up? You won't. Adrian's confidence was absolute. You've been hiding in plain sight for 8 months. This is just another performance. You're good at survival, Lena. Use that. 2 hours later, Lena barely recognized herself in the mirror. The dress was midnight blue silk, elegant without being flashy, with a neckline that was sophisticated rather than revealing. Her hair had been professionally styled in soft waves, her makeup subtle but expertly applied. Diamond earrings, Adrian's apparently on loan, glittered at her ears. She looked like someone who belonged on Adrian Voss's arm. She looked nothing like a maid. Wow. The stylist stepped back, admiring her work. You clean up nice. I feel ridiculous. You look incredible. Trust me. The woman grinned. Mr. Voss is going to lose his mind. But when Adrian saw her, his expression didn't change. He simply nodded, offered his arm, and said, Perfect. Let's go. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't advertise, didn't have a sign, and where the waiting list was measured in months. Adrian walked in like he owned it, which Lena suspected he might, and they were immediately escorted to a private room. 3 men waited inside. Older, distinguished, wearing suits that probably cost more than Lena used to make in a month. They stood when Adrian entered, their eyes immediately moving to Lena with undisguised curiosity. Gentlemen? Adrian's hand settled on Lena's lower back, warm and proprietary. I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Lena Hayes. The room went absolutely silent. Then chaos erupted. Questions, congratulations, surprise. The men crowded around, shaking Lena's hand, offering their best wishes. Adrian fielded their questions smoothly, explaining that they'd kept the relationship private for months, but decided it was time to make it official. Lena smiled, nodded, played her part. And slowly, as the evening progressed, something strange happened. It stopped feeling like a performance. Adrian was attentive without being overbearing. He included her in conversations, valued her opinions, touched her with casual affection that felt almost real. When one of the men made a slightly inappropriate joke, Adrian's hand tightened on hers warningly, and the conversation shifted immediately. He was protecting her, publicly claiming her, and despite everything, despite knowing this was fake, despite understanding that Adrian Voss was dangerous, Lena felt safer than she had in years. By the time they returned to the mansion, exhaustion was setting in. The adrenaline that had carried her through the evening was fading, leaving her shaky and overwhelmed. You did well. Adrian walked her to her new suite. Natural, believable. I felt like a fraud. Everyone feels like a fraud at first. You'll adjust. He paused outside her door. Your son arrives at 10 tomorrow morning. I'll have security prepared for the arrival, and I've hired a woman named Sarah Chen as his nanny. She's vetted, trustworthy, and has 20 years of experience. Another Chen. Lena wondered if it was intentional, replacing the problematic Chens with loyal ones. Thank you for all of this. Thank me by making this convincing. Adrian's expression was unreadable. The moment people doubt us, the protection falters. I understand. He turned to leave, then stopped. Lena, one more thing. Yes? Marcus will retaliate. Not immediately, but eventually. When he does, I need you to trust me to handle it. No running, no hiding. You're under my protection now, which means you do things my way. The command in his voice should have rankled. Instead, it was almost comforting. Okay. Adrian nodded and left, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Lena entered her new bedroom, spacious, luxurious, nothing like the cramped quarters she'd left behind. She sank onto the bed, still wearing the blue dress, and finally let herself process everything that had happened. In 24 hours, she'd gone from invisible maid to the fiancée of the city's most powerful crime boss. In 12 more hours, her son would be here, safe under Adrian's protection. And somewhere out there, Marcus was planning his revenge. Lena touched the diamond earrings still at her ears, borrowed symbols of a life that wasn't really hers. But maybe, if she played this role well enough, it could be. Maybe she could protect Matteo and give him the safe, stable life he deserved. Maybe this desperate deal would be the best decision she'd ever made. Or maybe it would destroy them all. Only time would tell. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and a moment of pure panic before memory crashed back. The blue dress lay draped over a chair where she'd finally removed it at 3 in the morning. Diamond earrings sat in their velvet box on the nightstand, and in 6 hours, Elena would arrive with Matteo, her son. Here, safe. The thought propelled her out of bed and into the marble bathroom that was easily twice the size of her old room. She showered quickly, her mind racing through everything that needed to happen. She had to call Elena, prepare herself emotionally, figure out what to tell her friend about this insane situation. But when she emerged, wrapped in a plush robe, she found a note slipped under her door. Breakfast in the sunroom. We need to discuss the story. The sunroom turned out to be a glass-enclosed paradise overlooking the gardens, filled with orchids and morning light. Adrian sat at a wrought iron table reading a newspaper and drinking coffee like this was a perfectly normal morning. He glanced up when she entered. Sleep well? Not really. Lena sat across from him, accepting the coffee a silent servant poured for her. I kept thinking about what to tell Elena. Tell her the truth, the version we agreed on. Adrian set down his newspaper. You met me, we fell for each other, things moved quickly. The fairy tale. She'll never believe it. Why not? These things happen. His tone was matter-of-fact. Woman meets powerful man. He's drawn to her quiet strength. She sees past his reputation to the person underneath. Classic romance. Except it's not real. She doesn't need to know that. Adrian's eyes met hers over his coffee cup. The more people who believe the story, the safer you are. That includes your friend. Lena wanted to argue, but he was right. The fewer people who knew the truth, the better. What about your people? Your staff? They know I was a maid here 2 days ago. They know what I tell them to know. As of yesterday, you were never staff. You were a guest, staying here discreetly while we navigated the early stages of our relationship. Anyone who says otherwise will find themselves looking for new employment. The casual threat in his voice made her shiver. My people are loyal, Lena. They won't talk. And Marcus? Marcus is being handled. Adrian's expression hardened. He's currently discovering that several of his business ventures are under investigation. Banking irregularities, tax issues. Nothing he can trace back to me, but enough to keep him very busy. You did all that overnight? I made some calls. He said it like he'd ordered takeout, not destroyed a man's financial life. He'll be too preoccupied to focus on you for at least a few weeks. That gives us time to solidify your position here. A servant appeared with breakfast, fresh fruit, pastries, eggs prepared perfectly. Lena picked at the food, her stomach too tight to eat properly. You're nervous about seeing your son, Adrian observed. I haven't held him in 8 months. I've only seen him through video calls and stolen visits. Her voice cracked. What if he doesn't remember me? He's your son. He'll remember. Adrian's certainty was surprising. And if he's tentative at first, you'll have time to rebuild that bond. He's living here now. You'll see him every day. The kindness in his words caught her off guard. This was the same man who'd casually mentioned eliminating his ex-girlfriend, who ran a criminal empire, who'd just ruined Marcus's life with a few phone calls. But here, discussing her fears about her son, he was almost gentle. Thank you, she said quietly. For this. All of it. Don't thank me yet. This arrangement comes with expectations. Adrian leaned back in his chair. Starting today, you're no longer invisible. You're the woman who captured my attention, my fiancé, my partner. That means certain people will target you to get to me. What kind of people? Rivals, enemies, people who think removing you will weaken me. He said it calmly, like discussing the weather. That's why security will be with you whenever you leave this property. That's why I need you to follow protocols without question. Lena's appetite vanished completely. You're saying my life is in danger? I'm saying you were already in danger from Marcus. Now you're in a different kind of danger, but with resources to protect yourself. Adrian's gaze was steady. I won't lie to you, Lena. This life isn't safe, but it's safer than being alone and hunted. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stood. Your friend is early. She's at the gate. Lena's heart lurched. She's not supposed to be here for 3 hours. She probably drove through the night. Adrian extended his hand. Come, let's welcome your son home. The drive from the gate to the main house took 2 minutes along a tree-lined path. Lena watched through the window as Elena's modest sedan appeared, looking painfully out of place among the luxury vehicles in the circular drive. Before the car fully stopped, Lena was moving, her composure forgotten. Elena emerged from the driver's side, looking exhausted and worried. But then the back door opened, and Lena's world narrowed to one perfect, beautiful sight. Mateo. He'd grown. His baby fat had melted into toddler features, his dark curls longer than she remembered. He blinked in the morning sunlight, clutching his favorite stuffed duck, and then his eyes found her. Mama? The word broke her. Lena ran, dropping to her knees on the gravel drive and catching her son as he toddled toward her. He was solid and warm and real in her arms, smelling like baby shampoo and Elena's laundry detergent, and home. Mi amor, she whispered against his hair, tears streaming down her face. Mama missed you so much. Mama cry? Mateo pulled back, his little face concerned. He patted her cheeks with sticky hands. No cry. Happy tears, baby. These are happy tears. Elena approached slowly, her expression torn between relief and confusion. Lena, what is going on? You call it midnight saying to bring Mateo immediately. You give me this address in the richest part of the city, and when I pull up, there are armed guards at the gate. Elena. Lena stood, lifting Mateo onto her hip. I need you to trust me. I'll explain everything, but first... She turned to find Adrian standing a respectful distance away, giving them space. Elena Rodriguez, this is Adrian Voss, my fiancé. Elena's mouth fell open, then closed, then opened again. Your what? Perhaps we should discuss this inside. Adrian's voice was diplomatic. You've had a long drive, Ms. Rodriguez. Let me offer you coffee and answers. 20 minutes later, they sat in a private living room while Mateo played with an array of new toys that had mysteriously appeared. Elena held her coffee cup like a shield, her eyes moving between Lena and Adrian with undisguised suspicion. Let me get this straight. Elena's tone was carefully controlled. You've been hiding from Marcus for 8 months, working as a maid, and somehow in the last 2 days you met, fell in love with, and got engaged to... She gestured at Adrian. Him. It's not quite that simple, Lena began. It's exactly that simple. Adrian interrupted smoothly. I noticed Lena months ago, admired her grace, her competence, her intelligence. But she was cautious, understandably so given what she'd been through. It took time to earn her trust. The lie flowed so naturally that even Lena almost believed it. Elena wasn't buying it. Adrian Voss, I know that name. You're a businessman with diverse interests. Adrian's smile didn't reach his eyes. I understand your concern for your friend, Ms. Rodriguez. You want to protect her. That's admirable. But I assure you, Lena and Mateo are safer here than anywhere else they could possibly be. Safe from what? From who? Elena looked at Lena. What aren't you telling me? Lena took a breath. Marcus found out about Mateo. He hired a private investigator. He was getting close to finding you. The color drained from Elena's face. Dios mío. Adrian has resources, protection. He can keep us safe in ways I never could on my own. Lena reached across and squeezed her friend's hand. I know this seems crazy. I know it's fast, but I need you to trust me, please. Elena studied her for a long moment, then turned to Adrian. If you hurt her, if you put that baby in danger, I don't care how powerful you are. I will make you regret it. Noted. Adrian's respect for the older woman was evident. Your loyalty is impressive, Ms. Rodriguez. Lena is lucky to have you. She's like my daughter. That baby is my godson. Elena's voice shook slightly. They're all I have left. Then we share a goal, keeping them safe. Adrian stood. I'll leave you two to talk. Take all the time you need. After he left, Elena turned to Lena with knowing eyes. Okay, tell me the real story, because that man doesn't do anything out of the goodness of his heart. So Lena told her. Not everything. Not the criminal empire or the eliminated ex-girlfriend. But enough. The deal. The fake engagement. The protection in exchange for appearances. Elena listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned with each revelation. Lena, sweetie, you made a deal with the devil. I made a deal with someone who can protect my son from his father. That's all that matters. And when this arrangement ends, what then? Then I leave with enough money to disappear properly, to give Mateo a real life. Lena watched her son stack blocks with intense concentration. 6 months, maybe a year. I can do this for a year. Can you? Elena's voice was gentle. Can you pretend to love a dangerous man for a year and walk away unaffected? I'm not going to fall for him, Elena. This is business. That's what they all say, Elena sighed, setting down her coffee. But I can see you've made up your mind. So I'll support you. Just promise me you'll be careful, and if things get bad, you call me, immediately. I promise. They spent the next hour catching up, with Elena sharing stories of Mateo's milestones, his first steps, his new words, his obsession with ducks. Each story was a knife in Lena's heart, a reminder of everything she'd missed. But when Elena finally left, Lena had her son back, and that made every sacrifice worth it. Adrian found her in the nursery that evening, watching Mateo sleep in his new crib. The room was dimly lit, peaceful, the soft sound of a sound machine filling the space. How is he? Adrian's voice was quiet, respectful of the sleeping child. Perfect. Exhausted from all the excitement, but perfect. Lena couldn't stop looking at her son, memorizing his features all over again. He called you Mr. Man at dinner. I've been called worse. The hint of amusement in Adrian's voice made her glance at him. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, looking oddly out of place in this room designed for innocence and childhood. Thank you for the toys and the nanny. Sarah seems wonderful. She came highly recommended, but she's just backup. You're his mother. Adrian paused. I meant what I said earlier. You'll have time with him, real time. I'm not trying to replace you. Why are you being so kind about this? Lena turned to face him fully. You could have just hired a nanny and been done with it. Why do you care? Adrian was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable in the low light. I didn't have a mother growing up. Mine left when I was 3. I remember what that felt like. He met her eyes. I won't be responsible for another child experiencing that. The confession surprised her. Adrian Voss, the untouchable crime boss, revealing something painful and personal. It felt like a gift, a glimpse beneath the armor. I'm sorry. That must have been hard. It made me who I am. He said it without emotion, a simple fact. We all have our scars, Lena. The question is what we do with them. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression darkened. What's wrong? Marcus just posted bail on charges I didn't know about. He attacked a woman at a bar 3 nights ago, put her in the hospital. Adrian's jaw tightened. The charges should have kept him locked up for at least a week. How did he make bail? His family has resources, and apparently more friends in the legal system than I anticipated. Adrian pocketed his phone. This accelerates our timeline. We need to make a very public appearance tomorrow. What kind of appearance? The Riverside Charity Gala. It's the social event of the season. Every important person in the city will be there. His eyes met hers, including people who know Marcus, including people who need to see that you're under my protection. Lena's stomach twisted. I don't know if I'm ready for something that big. You don't have a choice. Marcus will hear you're here within 24 hours regardless. Better he hears it when you're by my side, publicly claimed, than through some rumor. Adrian's logic was sound, even if it terrified her. I'll have Diana bring options for dresses tomorrow, something that makes a statement. Adrian, this is what you agreed to, Lena. Public appearances, playing the role. His tone wasn't unkind, but it was firm. I need you ready to perform. She wanted to argue, to push back, but he was right. She'd made this deal knowing what it entailed. and if a gala appearance kept Mateo safe, she'd walk through fire in a ball gown. What time? 7. We'll arrive fashionably late. Adrian moved toward the door, then paused. And Lena? Tomorrow night, everyone in this city will know you're mine. That's going to paint a target on your back. So when I tell you to stay close to me, you stay close. Understood? Understood. After he left, Lena returned her attention to Mateo, watching his chest rise and fall with each peaceful breath. Tomorrow she'd step fully into this new role, this new life. Tomorrow she'd become someone worth noticing, worth targeting, worth protecting. But tonight, she was just a mother, watching her son sleep, grateful beyond words to have him back in her arms. The next day passed in a blur of preparation. Diana arrived with a team carrying garment bags, shoe boxes, and jewelry cases. The bedroom transformed into a boutique as dresses were displayed, discussed, and dismissed. Too sweet, too conservative, too trendy. Diana rejected option after option until she pulled out a gown that made Lena's breath catch. It was deep emerald silk, elegant and sophisticated, with a neckline that was daring without being inappropriate. The fabric moved like water, catching the light with every movement. This, Diana declared, this is the one. It's beautiful, but no buts. Trust me. Diana held it up against Lena. Adrian needs people to see you as his equal, not his accessory. This dress says, I belong here. 2 hours later, Lena barely recognized herself in the mirror. The dress fit perfectly, highlighting her figure without being obvious. Her hair was swept up in an elegant twist, with a few soft tendrils framing her face. Makeup enhanced her features, smoky eyes, nude lips, a subtle glow. And the jewelry. These are real, aren't they? Lena stared at the emerald necklace Diana fastened around her throat. Adrian doesn't do fake anything. Diana stepped back, admiring her work. You look incredible, like you were born to this life. I was born in a trailer park in Nevada. And now you're engaged to the most powerful man in the city. Cinderella stories do happen, Lena. Embrace it. A knock on the door announced Adrian's arrival. He entered wearing a custom tuxedo that made him look even more dangerous than usual, all sharp lines and controlled power. His eyes swept over her, and for the first time his mask slipped. Something heated flashed in his gaze before he controlled it. You'll do. His voice was carefully neutral, but Lena caught the slight catch in his breath. Diana rolled her eyes. She looks spectacular, and you know it. Thank you, Diana. That will be all. After Diana left, Adrian circled Lena slowly, studying her like she was a chess piece he was strategically placing. The necklace was my grandmother's, the only woman in my family worth remembering. It's beautiful. It suits you. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Remember, tonight you're not Lena Hayes, former nurse hiding from her past. You're my fiancé, confident, elegant, untouchable. And if I make a mistake, you won't. You're a survivor, Lena. You know how to adapt. His hand came up, adjusting a tendril of hair near her face, the gesture intimate despite his clinical tone. Just follow my lead. Trust me to guide you through the sharks. The car that took them to the gala was sleek and black, with tinted windows and a security detail that followed in a second vehicle. Lena's hands trembled slightly in her lap, and she clasped them together to hide it. Adrian noticed. Nervous? Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He glanced at her. But don't let them see it. These people, they're predators. They smell weakness and exploit it. Reassuring. I'm not here to coddle you. I'm here to prepare you. His hand covered hers, warm and steady. But I won't let anyone hurt you. That's my job now. The possessiveness in his words should have bothered her. Instead, it was strangely comforting. The Riverside Hotel was lit up like a palace, with red carpets, photographers, and beautiful people everywhere. As their car pulled up, flashes erupted like lightning. They know we're coming. Lena's voice shook. I made sure they did. Adrian's hand tightened on hers. Remember, confident, elegant, untouchable. You're with me. That makes you royalty in this world. The door opened. Adrian exited smoothly, then turned and extended his hand to her. Lena took it, letting him help her from the car, and the camera flashes intensified. Mr. Voss! Mr. Voss, who's your date? Is this the mysterious woman we've been hearing about? Are the engagement rumors true? Adrian ignored them all, his hand settling possessively on Lena's lower back as he guided her up the red carpet. His touch was warm through the silk of her dress, steady and grounding. Inside, the ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, flowing champagne, women in designer gowns and men in expensive tuxedos. Conversations paused as they entered, heads turning, whispers spreading like wildfire. "They're staring," Lena murmured. "Let them." Adrian's voice was low, meant only for her. "Let them see exactly who you are to me." He guided her through the crowd, introducing her to people whose names she forgot immediately. Everyone was polite, curious, carefully probing for information. Adrian deflected questions with practiced ease, revealing nothing while seeming to share everything. "You're good at this," Lena observed during a brief moment alone. "I've been doing it my whole life. The performance, the mask." He snagged 2 champagne glasses from a passing waiter, handing her one. "You're doing well, too. Natural, like you belong here." "I don't feel like I belong here." "Fake it until you make it. That's how everyone in this room operates." Adrian's eyes scanned the crowd constantly, cataloging threats and opportunities. "Nobody's authentic in this world, Lena. We're all performing." Before she could respond, a woman's voice cut through the noise. "Adrian Voss? I heard rumors, but I didn't believe them." They turned to find a stunning blonde woman approaching, her dress probably worth more than a car. She was maybe 40, beautiful in that maintained, expensive way, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Catherine." Adrian's tone cooled several degrees. "How unexpected." "Is it? You know I never missed the Riverside Gala." Catherine's eyes moved to Lena, assessing and dismissive. "And who is this?" "Lena Hayes, my fiancée." Adrian's hand tightened on Lena's waist. "Lena, this is Catherine Sterling, an old acquaintance." The way he said acquaintance carried layers of meaning. Lena extended her hand. "Pleasure to meet you." Catherine's handshake was brief, cold. "Fiancé? How sudden?" "I was under the impression Adrian didn't do commitment." "People change." Lena kept her voice pleasant, matching Catherine's fake smile with her own. "Apparently." Catherine's gaze returned to Adrian. "I give it 6 months. You've never been one for domestic bliss, darling." "Then I suggest you don't make any bets you can't afford to lose." Adrian's voice carried an edge of warning. "If you'll excuse us, we have other people to see." He guided Lena away, his hand like steel on her waist. "Ex-girlfriend?" Lena guessed. "Briefly, she had expensive tastes and loose lips." Adrian's jaw was tight. "She's the reason I need someone trustworthy by my side." "The one who leaked information?" "Yes. Though eliminated as a threat doesn't mean what you probably think it means. I simply made sure she understood that betraying me again would have consequences she couldn't survive." Lena shivered, reminded sharply that the man whose arm she held was capable of calculated cruelty. The evening continued. More introductions, more champagne, more performing. Lena's feet ached in her heels, and her face hurt from smiling. But she maintained her composure, playing her role perfectly. Then, across the crowded ballroom, she saw him. Marcus. He stood near the bar, talking to a group of men in expensive suits. He looked the same, handsome in that polished way, dark hair perfectly styled, smile practiced and fake. But there was something new in his eyes, something harder, angrier. He hadn't seen her yet. "Adrian." Her voice came out strained. He followed her gaze immediately, his body tensing. "I knew he might be here. Stay calm." "I can't." "Yes, you can." Adrian turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. "Look at me, Lena." Not at him, at me. She forced her eyes to his face, seeing determination there, and something else. Protection. "He can't hurt you here, not with me beside you, not with every important person in this city watching." Adrian's thumb brushed her cheek gently, the gesture tender despite the circumstances. "Trust me." "I do." And she realized she meant it. Adrian's eyes darkened at her words, something shifting in his expression. Then he did something completely unexpected. He kissed her. It wasn't a dramatic kiss, wasn't passionate or overwhelming. It was soft, gentle, almost questioning. His lips were warm against hers, his hand cradling her face like she was something precious, and Lena forgot to breathe. When he pulled back, his eyes held hers. There. Now he knows exactly where things stand. Lena blinked, dazed. That was necessary, but his voice was rougher than usual. And now everyone in this room knows you're mine, including Marcus, who stood frozen across the ballroom, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. The moment stretched impossibly long. Marcus stood motionless across the ballroom, his champagne glass frozen halfway to his lips, his eyes locked on Lena with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Then his gaze shifted to Adrian, and something dangerous flickered across his face before his practiced smile slid back into place. Adrian's hand remained on Lena's waist, his thumb tracing small, possessive circles against the silk of her dress. To anyone watching, it looked like casual affection. But Lena could feel the tension coiled in his body, the predator recognizing a threat. "He's coming over here," Lena whispered, her voice barely audible. "Good. Let him." Adrian's tone was almost bored, but his eyes tracked Marcus's approach with lethal precision. "Remember what I told you. You're untouchable now." Marcus weaved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no, his smile growing wider and faker with each step. Two men flanked him, business associates probably, or muscle disguised in expensive suits. When he finally reached them, he spread his arms like they were old friends reuniting. "Adrian Voss, what a small world." Marcus's voice was smooth, practiced, revealing nothing. "I didn't expect to see you here tonight." "Marcus?" Adrian's acknowledgement was barely civil. "I could say the same." "Well, you know how it is. Can't miss the social event of the season." Marcus's eyes slid to Lena, and she saw the moment recognition hit. His smile faltered just for a second before he recovered. "And who is this lovely creature?" Adrian's hand tightened on Lena's waist in warning. "My fiancée, Lena Hayes." "Lena, this is Marcus Chen, former associate." The emphasis on former wasn't subtle. Marcus extended his hand to Lena, his expression perfectly polite. But when their hands touched, his grip was too tight, his thumb pressing against her pulse point in a gesture that was anything but friendly. "Charmed," Marcus said, his eyes boring into hers. "Have we met before? You look familiar?" Lena's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "I don't think so. I'm sure I would have remembered." Perhaps." Marcus released her hand slowly, deliberately. "Lena Hayes, that's an interesting name. Simple, forgettable, really." The insult was veiled but clear. Adrian shifted slightly, moving fractionally closer to Lena in a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed. "I find her quite memorable." Adrian's voice carried an edge of steel. "But then, I've always had better taste than most." The tension between the two men was palpable now, a live wire waiting to spark. Other guests were starting to notice, conversations pausing as people sensed drama brewing. Marcus's smile never wavered. "Congratulations on your engagement. How long have you two been together?" "Long enough to know she's exactly what I've been looking for." Adrian's answer was smooth, revealing nothing specific. "Really?" "Because I could have sworn I saw someone who looked remarkably like Lena working as—" "You must be mistaken." Adrian's interruption was surgical, cutting Marcus off before he could finish. "Lena's been staying with me for months. Quietly, of course. We valued our privacy." "Of course." Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. "Privacy is so important, especially when you have things to hide." The threat hung in the air between them, unspoken but crystal clear. "The only thing I'm hiding," Adrian said quietly, his voice dropping to a register that made the words feel dangerous, "is how limited my patience has become. I suggest you finish your drink and find someone else to bore with your conversation." For a moment, Marcus looked like he might push back, his jaw clenched, his hands fisting at his sides. Then, apparently thinking better of it, he stepped back with an exaggerated bow. "Of course. Wouldn't want to intrude on the happy couple." His eyes found Lena's one last time. "Enjoy your evening, Miss Hayes. I'm sure we'll be seeing much more of each other." As he walked away, Adrian leaned down and spoke directly into Lena's ear, his breath warm against her skin. "You did well, but we're leaving. Now. But the gala is over for us." We made our appearance. We sent the message. Adrian was already guiding her toward the exit, his hand never leaving her waist. And Marcus just confirmed he knows exactly who you are. The drive back to the mansion was silent, charged with unspoken tension. Lena stared out the window, her mind replaying the encounter over and over. Marcus had recognized her. Not immediately, but he'd figured it out. The way he'd looked at her, that cruel smile, he knew. He's going to make trouble, she finally said. Of course he is. That's why we're accelerating the plan. Adrian's voice was calm, but his hands were tight on the steering wheel. He'd dismissed the driver, choosing to drive himself, and Lena suspected he needed the control. What plan? The one where I destroy him completely. Adrian glanced at her, his expression unreadable in the dark car. I told you I'd handle Marcus. I meant it. How? The less you know, the better. Plausible deniability. He turned his attention back to the road. But understand this. By tomorrow morning, Marcus Chen will have much bigger problems than wondering where his ex-girlfriend disappeared to. The certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, Lena felt a dark satisfaction knowing that Marcus was about to face consequences for once in his privileged life. When they arrived back at the mansion, it was nearly midnight. The house was quiet. Most of the staff retired for the evening. Adrian walked Lena to her suite, the silence between them thick with things unsaid. At her door, she paused. That kiss, at the gala, was necessary. Adrian's tone was neutral, professional. It felt like a performance. Because it was. He cut her off before she could finish the thought. Don't read more into it than what it was, Lena. A strategic move to establish ownership in front of people who needed to see it. The clinical description stung more than it should have. Right, strategy. You sound disappointed. I'm not. She fumbled for words. I just want to be clear on the boundaries. The boundaries are simple. In public, we're an engaged couple. Affection, intimacy, the whole performance. In private, we're business associates with clearly defined roles. Adrian's eyes were cold, distant. Don't confuse the act with reality. I won't. Lena lifted her chin, refusing to let him see how his words landed. Good night, Adrian. She entered her suite and closed the door firmly, leaning against it as she heard his footsteps retreat down the hallway. Her lips still tingled from that kiss. Her body still remembered the warmth of his hand on her waist, and she hated herself for the disappointment blooming in her chest. This was business, an arrangement, nothing more. She needed to remember that. The next morning, Lena woke to chaos. Raised voices echoed through the hallway, urgent footsteps, doors slamming. She threw on a robe and opened her door to find staff rushing past, their faces tense with worry. What's happening? She asked Maria, who was hurrying by with an armful of linens. Security breach. Someone tried to get over the wall last night. Maria's eyes were wide. Mr. Voss has the whole place on lockdown. Lena's blood ran cold. Where's my son? The nursery. Sarah's with him, but Mr. Voss wants everyone in the safe room until... Lena didn't wait to hear the rest. She ran down the hallway, her bare feet silent on the marble floors, her heart hammering with pure maternal terror. The nursery door was closed, and she burst through it to find Sarah standing protectively over Mateo's crib, a phone pressed to her ear. He's fine, Sarah said immediately, seeing Lena's panic. We're fine. I've been here all night. Mateo was awake, playing with his stuffed duck, completely oblivious to the drama. When he saw Lena, his face lit up. Mama, up! Lena scooped him into her arms, holding him tight enough to make him squirm. I've got you, baby. Mama's got you. Adrian appeared in the doorway, still in the clothes from last night, looking like he hadn't slept. His eyes swept the room, cataloging everyone's safety, before settling on Lena. You need to come with me. Now. What happened? Someone tried to breach the perimeter at 3 a.m. Security stopped them, but we need to assume this property is compromised. Adrian's tone was clipped, efficient. Pack a bag. Essentials only. We're moving you and Mateo to a secondary location. Who was it? Was it Marcus? We don't know yet. The intruder got away before we could apprehend them. Adrian's jaw was tight with frustration. But whether it was Marcus or someone else, the message is clear. You're not safe here anymore. 20 minutes later, Lena found herself in another armored car, Mateo secured in a car seat beside her, Sarah in the front passenger seat, and Adrian behind the wheel. A convoy of security vehicles surrounded them as they pulled away from the mansion. "Where are we going?" Lena asked. "A property I own outside the city. More secure. Harder to find." Adrian's eyes never left the road, constantly checking mirrors. "You'll stay there until I've neutralized the threat." "How long will that take?" "As long as it needs to." He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "I told you this life came with dangers. This is what I meant." Mateo, sensing the tension, started to fuss. Lena soothed him with quiet words and his favorite duck, but her mind was racing. Less than 48 hours ago, she'd felt safe for the first time in months. Now they were running again, hiding again, and the walls were closing in. The safe house turned out to be a lakefront property surrounded by woods, isolated and beautiful, in a way that felt more like a prison than a sanctuary. The house itself was smaller than the mansion, but still luxurious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. "The windows are bulletproof," Adrian explained as they entered. "The property has motion sensors, cameras, and a security team that rotates every 6 hours. No one gets in or out without my knowledge." "How reassuring," Lena muttered. Adrian's expression softened slightly. "I know this isn't what you signed up for, but I promise you this is temporary. Once I've handled Marcus—" "You keep saying you'll handle him. What does that actually mean?" Lena set Mateo down, watching him toddle toward the windows. "Because from where I'm standing, he's winning. We're hiding, running, and he's out there free to do whatever he wants." "Not for long." Adrian's phone buzzed and he glanced at it. "I have to go. Business that can't wait. Sarah will stay with you, and there are 4 guards outside. You'll be safe." "Adrian!" But he was already leaving, his phone pressed to his ear. His attention already shifted to the next crisis. The door closed behind him with a finality that made Lena's chest tight. Sarah, reading the room perfectly, swept Mateo up with a smile. "How about we explore this new house, little man? I think I saw a playroom upstairs." Alone, Lena moved to the windows and stared out at the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the gray sky like a mirror, beautiful and cold and completely isolated, just like her life. The next 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Lena played with Mateo, read him stories, tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy while living in a gilded cage. Adrian came and went at odd hours, always tense, always distracted, his phone constantly ringing with updates she wasn't privy to. On the 4th night, he arrived after Mateo was already asleep. Lena sat in the living room, a book she wasn't really reading open in her lap, when she heard his car pull up. He entered the house looking exhausted, his tie loosened, his shirt wrinkled. When he saw her, he paused. "You're still awake." "Couldn't sleep." Lena closed the book. "What's happening, Adrian? And don't tell me it's nothing, or that I don't need to know. This is my life, my son's life. I deserve the truth." Adrian poured himself a drink from the bar cart, downed it, then poured another. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with fatigue. "Marcus is trying to build a case for custody. He's hired a team of lawyers and is claiming you're an unfit mother who kidnapped his child." The words hit like physical blows. "He can't." "He can. And he's doing it." Adrian turned to face her. "He's also spreading rumors about you and me, saying you're a gold digger who seduced me for money and protection, that you abandoned your child for months to work as my mistress." Lena's hands shook. "That's a lie." "Doesn't matter. Lies told often enough become truth in people's minds." Adrian's expression was grim. "He's trying to destroy your reputation before the custody battle even begins. Make you look so unstable that no judge would grant you custody." "Why are you telling me this?" Lena's voice cracked. "Earlier you said I didn't need to know details." "Because earlier I thought I could handle this quietly. Now I realize Marcus is willing to burn everything down to hurt you." Adrian set down his glass. "And I need you to understand what we're really fighting." "We? You think I'm going to let him win?" Adrian's voice hardened. "He worked for me. He stole from me. He laid hands on a woman under my protection. This stopped being just your fight the moment he made it personal." The possessiveness was back, that edge of ownership that should have bothered her, but instead made her feel less alone. "What do we do?" she asked quietly. We fight dirty. Adrian moved closer, his eyes locked on hers. I've been playing nice, using legal channels and subtle pressure. But Marcus doesn't respond to subtle, so we're going to hit him where it really hurts. How? His family. The Chen family empire is built on carefully maintained appearances and financial leverage. If those foundations crumble, everything else falls apart. Adrian's smile was sharp, dangerous. I've spent the last 4 days gathering evidence of every illegal transaction, every bribe, every corner they've cut. Tomorrow I'm going to give that evidence to 3 different federal agencies and watch them tear the Chen family apart. Lena stared at him, shocked by the calculated cruelty in his plan. You're going to destroy his entire family? I'm going to destroy their power, their money, their reputation. Adrian's expression was cold. By the time I'm done, Marcus won't have the resources to fight you for custody. He'll be too busy trying to keep his family out of prison. That's necessary. Adrian cut her off. You wanted the truth. This is it. I don't do anything halfway, Lena. When I protect what's mine, I eliminate the threat completely. The words hung between them, heavy with implications. What's mine? He'd said it so casually, like it was a simple fact. I'm not yours, Lena said softly. This is an arrangement. You're under my protection. That makes you mine to defend. Adrian's gaze was intense, whether you like it or not. You can't just claim people like possessions. I can when their safety depends on it. He moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. You came to me for help, Lena. This is how I help. Completely, ruthlessly, without mercy for anyone who threatens what I'm protecting. Lena's breath caught. They stood inches apart, the air between them charged with something dangerous and electric. She should step back, put distance between them, remember the boundaries they'd established. Instead, she held her ground. You're dangerous, she whispered. I know. Adrian's hand came up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. But I'm dangerous in your service now. Doesn't that count for something? Before she could answer, before she could think through the implications, his phone rang. Adrian stepped back with a curse, answering it with a curt, "What?" His expression changed as he listened, going from frustrated to coldly furious in seconds. When? He demanded. How many? A pause. No, don't engage, pull back and let them think they've won. I'm on my way. He hung up and turned to Lena, his face a mask of controlled rage. What happened? Marcus just made a move. He showed up at the mansion with a lawyer and 2 cops, demanding to search the premises for his son. Adrian was already moving toward the door. He doesn't know you're not there, but it won't take him long to figure it out. He had police with him? Corrupt cops on his family's payroll, most likely, but it doesn't matter. He's forcing my hand. Adrian paused at the door. I'm going to end this, tonight, but I need you to promise me something. What? Stay here. Don't leave this house no matter what you hear. Don't answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. And if anyone other than me or my security team approaches this property, you take Mateo and lock yourself in the panic room. Understand? The fear in his eyes was real, and it terrified her more than his words. Adrian, what are you going to do? What I should have done the moment he touched you. His expression was deadly. I'm going to make Marcus Chen wish he'd never been born. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him, tires squealing as his car raced back toward the city. Lena stood frozen in the empty living room, her heart pounding, her mind racing with possibilities. Adrian had promised to handle Marcus, but what did that actually mean? What lengths would he go to? And more terrifying, what would be left when it was over? She checked on Mateo, finding him sleeping peacefully in his crib, oblivious to the storm raging around them. Sarah dozed in a chair nearby, exhausted from days of heightened vigilance. Lena should sleep, should rest while she could. Instead, she paced the living room, watching the clock tick past midnight, then 1 a.m., then 2. Her phone stayed silent. The house remained quiet except for the wind off the lake. At 3:15 a.m., headlights swept across the driveway. Lena's heart lurched. Too soon for Adrian to be back. She grabbed her phone, ready to call security when the front door opened. Adrian stepped through and Lena gasped. His knuckles were split and bleeding. His shirt had speckles of blood across the collar. There was a cut above his eyebrow that had been hastily cleaned but still oozed. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold. They were empty, hollow, like he'd gone somewhere dark and hadn't fully come back. Adrian! She moved toward him automatically. What happened? Are you hurt? I'm fine. His voice was flat, emotionless. It's done. What's done? Marcus. His lawyers. His family. Adrian moved to the bar, poured whiskey with shaking hands. They won't bother you again. The blood on his shirt, the cuts on his hands, the hollow look in his eyes. What did you do? Lena whispered. Adrian downed the whiskey, poured another. What I had to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. He finally looked at her, and for the first time since they'd met, she saw something raw and vulnerable in his expression. I've done things tonight that you can never know about. Things that would make you run if you knew. Then why are you here? Why come back at all? Because... He stopped, the words seeming to catch in his throat. Because I needed to see you. To know you were safe. To remember why I just burned half my bridges and made enemies I didn't need. Lena moved closer, ignoring every instinct telling her to run. Let me clean those cuts. Lena, sit down and let me clean your cuts. It wasn't a request. Adrian sat and Lena retrieved the first aid kit from the kitchen. She worked in silence, cleaning the blood from his knuckles, applying antiseptic to the cut above his eye. He sat perfectly still, watching her with an intensity that made her hands tremble. I grew up in violence, Adrian said quietly. My father was a brutal man who taught me that power comes from fear, that mercy is weakness, that the only way to survive is to be more ruthless than everyone else. Lena said nothing, just continued her gentle ministrations. I've spent my whole life becoming exactly what he wanted, building an empire through calculated cruelty, never letting anyone close enough to matter. His hand caught hers, stopping her movements. And then you showed up, this woman who'd rather work as a maid than accept help, who'd risk everything for her child, who looked at me like I was a person and not a monster. Adrian, I told myself this was business, that protecting you was strategic, that I felt nothing. His grip tightened on her hand. I was lying. The confession hung in the air between them, dangerous and heavy with meaning. This can't be real, Lena whispered. We barely know each other. This is just, it's proximity and danger and truth. Adrian pulled her closer, his other hand coming up to cup her face. I know it's insane. I know the timing is terrible. I know I'm the last person you should trust. But I can't pretend anymore, Lena. Not after tonight. His thumb traced her cheekbone, the gesture achingly tender from a man who'd just committed violence in her name. What happened tonight? She asked again, softer this time. I gave Marcus a choice. Drop the custody suit, leave the city, and never speak your name again. Or I release evidence that would destroy his entire family and land him in prison for the next 20 years. Adrian's expression was grim. He chose to leave. Just like that? After I demonstrated exactly what I was capable of. The hollow look returned to his eyes. I'm not a good man, Lena. I never will be. But for you, I'll try to be better. Lena's heart pounded as she looked at this complicated, dangerous, damaged man who'd turned his world upside down to protect her. Every rational thought screamed at her to maintain distance, to remember this was an arrangement, to guard her heart. But her heart had stopped listening to rational thoughts the moment he'd kissed her at the gala. Show me, she whispered. What? Show me what better looks like. Adrian's eyes darkened with something that made her breath catch. Then, slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, he leaned in and kissed her. This wasn't like the strategic kiss at the gala. This was raw, desperate, real. His hand tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and Lena melted into him, her hands fisting in his bloody shirt, her body pressing against his. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he said roughly. I know. We can't go back to business partners. I know. I'm still dangerous, still damaged, still capable of terrible things. I know. Lena pulled back enough to meet his eyes. But you're also the man who gave me my son back, who protected us when no one else could, who's trying to be better. And if I fail, if the darkness wins, then I'll pull you back. She said it with more certainty than she felt. That's what partners do. Adrian's smile was small, almost disbelieving. When did this become a real partnership? Maybe it always was. We just needed time to realize it. He kissed her again, softer this time, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. When he finally pulled away, some of the hollowness had left his eyes. "Stay with me tonight," he said. "Not as business partners, not as an arrangement, just stay." Lena knew she should say no, should maintain boundaries, should protect herself from falling any deeper. But she was already falling, had been falling since that first kiss, maybe even before. "Okay," she whispered. They moved upstairs, checking on Mateo first, still sleeping peacefully, still innocent of the violence and danger swirling around him. Then, hand in hand, they went to Adrian's room, and for the first time since this had all begun, Lena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this impossible situation might work out after all. Morning came too quickly, sunlight streaming through the windows and pulling Lena from the deepest sleep she'd had in months. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she felt the warmth beside her, the solid presence of Adrian still asleep, his arm draped across her waist, and reality came flooding back. She'd crossed a line last night. They both had. Adrian stirred, his eyes opening slowly, and when he saw her watching him, something vulnerable flickered across his face before his usual mask settled back into place. "Morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning." Lena wasn't sure what else to say. The intimacy of last night felt both incredibly right and terrifyingly complicated in the harsh light of day. Adrian seemed to sense her uncertainty. His hand found hers under the covers, their fingers intertwining. "Regrets?" "I don't know yet." Honesty felt safer than lies. "Do you?" "No." The certainty in his voice surprised her. "But I understand if you do. Last night was intense, the violence, the confession, all of it. You have every right to—" A sharp knock on the door interrupted him. Adrian was instantly alert, his body tensing as he reached for the phone on the nightstand. "What?" he answered curtly. Lena couldn't hear the response, but she watched Adrian's expression change from irritation to cold fury. "I'll be right there." He hung up and turned to Lena, already moving out of bed. "Marcus's family is here, at the gate, with their lawyers and a court order demanding to see Mateo." Lena's blood turned to ice. "How did they find us?" "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." Adrian was already pulling on clothes, his movements sharp and controlled. "Stay here. Don't go downstairs until I've dealt with this." "Adrian, please, Lena. Trust me to handle this." His eyes met hers, pleading and commanding at once. "I need to know you and Mateo are safe while I'm dealing with them." She nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Adrian kissed her quickly, fiercely, then left. Lena heard his footsteps rapid on the stairs, heard the front door open and close. She rushed to the window, careful to stay hidden behind the curtain, and watched as Adrian strode toward the gate, where 3 black cars had pulled up. An older woman emerged from the center vehicle, her posture rigid with fury and expensive clothes. Mrs. Chen, Marcus's mother, the woman who'd tried to blame Lena for her son's mistakes. Behind her came 2 men in suits carrying briefcases, and behind them, looking smug and vindicated, was Marcus himself. Lena's hands clenched into fists. After everything Adrian had done, after the promises of last night, Marcus was still coming for her son. She couldn't hear the conversation from this distance, but she could read the body language. Mrs. Chen was shouting, gesturing wildly. The lawyers were holding up documents. Marcus stood back, arms crossed, watching Adrian with barely concealed hatred. And Adrian stood perfectly still, hands in his pockets, his posture relaxed in a way that Lena now recognized as dangerous. The conversation lasted maybe 5 minutes. Then Adrian said something that made Mrs. Chen step back, her face going pale. He spoke to the lawyers next, pointing to something in their documents. One of them made a phone call, his expression growing increasingly distressed as he talked. Finally, Adrian turned to Marcus. Even from this distance, Lena could see the cold smile on his face as he spoke. Marcus's smugness evaporated, replaced by fear, then rage. He lunged forward, and for a horrible moment, Lena thought he would attack Adrian. But Adrian's security team materialized from nowhere, 4 men stepping between them before Marcus could reach his target. Marcus was restrained, still shouting, as his mother grabbed his arm and tried to pull him back. Whatever Adrian said next made them all freeze. Mrs. Chen's shoulders slumped. The lawyers looked at each other in what appeared to be shock, and Marcus went completely still, his face draining of color. Then, incredibly, they got back in their cars, all of them, and drove away. Lena stood at the window, her heart pounding, unable to process what she'd just witnessed. They'd come with lawyers and court orders, and the full weight of the Chen family power behind them, and Adrian had sent them away in 5 minutes. When he returned upstairs, he found Lena sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking in her lap. "What did you do?" she asked. I showed them the evidence I'd compiled. Every illegal transaction, every bribe, every corner they'd cut. Adrian's voice was a matter of fact. I explained that if they continued pursuing custody of Mateo, I would release everything to the federal authorities within the hour. That's it? You just threatened them? I also informed them that Marcus's assault charges from 3 nights ago have been upgraded. Apparently the woman he attacked has decided to press charges after all, with my lawyers helping her, pro bono. Adrian sat beside her, his expression grim. And I may have mentioned that I've purchased several of their outstanding debts, and I'm prepared to call them all due immediately if they don't back off. Lena stared at him. You bought their debts? The Chen family is leveraged to the hilt. They live beyond their means, using credit and connections to maintain appearances. I bought enough of their loans to effectively own them. He said it like he'd purchased groceries, not destroyed a family's financial foundation. They have no choice but to comply. So it's over, just like that? For now. Adrian's jaw tightened. Mrs. Chen signed a document relinquishing all rights to Mateo. Marcus agreed to leave the city and not contact you for any reason. The lawyers witnessed and notarized everything. It felt too easy, too clean. Lena waited for the catch, for the other shoe to drop. What's the price? She finally asked. What do you mean? There's always a price with you. What did you give up to make this happen? Adrian was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant. I've made enemies I didn't need. The Chen family has connections throughout the city. By destroying them, I've burned bridges with families who'd rather not see my power grow. He met her gaze. It's going to cost me, politically, financially, but it was worth it. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why would you risk all that for us? Because Adrian stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. Because somewhere between offering you this arrangement and last night, you stopped being a business deal and became something I can't walk away from. The confession hung between them, raw and honest and terrifying in its implications. Adrian, A cry from down the hall interrupted her. Mateo was awake. The moment shattered, reality crashing back. Lena stood, needing the excuse to escape this conversation that was moving too fast, revealing too much. I should get him, she said. Lena. Adrian caught her hand. We need to talk about this. About us. I know, but not right now. Right now I need to be a mother. She squeezed his hand, trying to convey everything she couldn't say. Later. I promise. She found Mateo standing in his crib, his face scrunched up and ready to wail. But when he saw her, his expression transformed into pure joy. Mama, up, up! Lena lifted him, breathing in his familiar baby scent, letting his solid warmth ground her. This was real. This was what mattered. Her son, safe and happy, and finally back in her arms. Good morning, mi amor, she whispered against his curls. Mama's here. The rest of the morning passed in a strange normalcy. Sarah prepared breakfast while Lena fed Mateo, the toddler chattering away about his duck and the birds outside the window. Adrian disappeared into his study, making calls and handling business, emerging only briefly to check on them. By afternoon, Lena felt like she could breathe again. Marcus was gone. His family had backed off. The immediate threat had passed, but she knew better than to relax completely. Adrian had taught her that much. In his world, peace was always temporary. She was playing blocks with Mateo in the living room when Diana arrived, her expression serious. We need to talk, Diana said without preamble. All 3 of us. Adrian emerged from his study, his face carefully neutral. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong exactly, but we need to discuss next steps. Diana settled into a chair, pulling out a tablet. The Chen family's retreat has created a vacuum. People are asking questions. The engagement story is holding, but barely. We need to make a stronger statement. What kind of statement? Lena asked, a sense of foreboding settling over her. A very public one. Diana's fingers flew over her tablet. There's a gala next month. The Westfield Foundation charity event. It's the biggest social gathering of the year, attended by everyone who matters in this city. I think you two should make your first major appearance there as an engaged couple. We were just at the Riverside Gala, Adrian pointed out. That was a soft launch. This needs to be definitive. Invitations, announcements, the works. Diana looked between them. I'm also suggesting we move up your wedding date. Set something concrete. Let people know this is serious. Lena's stomach dropped. Wedding date? It's been in the contract from the beginning, Diana reminded her gently. A formal engagement requires an eventual wedding. We don't have to go through with it, but we need people to believe we will. How soon are you talking? Adrian's voice was carefully controlled. 3 months. Long enough to seem realistic, short enough to capitalize on current momentum. Diana pulled up a calendar. We could set it for late spring. Beautiful weather, good optics. Lena looked at Adrian, trying to read his expression. This had started as a business arrangement, a temporary protection scheme. But after last night, after this morning, everything had changed. Or had it? Can we have a moment? Adrian asked Diana. Of course. I'll wait in the study. Diana left, taking her tablet with her. Adrian turned to Lena, his expression unreadable. What are you thinking? I'm thinking this got very complicated very fast. Lena stood, needing to move, to process. We're supposed to be fake engaged, but nothing about this feels fake anymore. No, Adrian agreed quietly. It doesn't. So what do we do? Set a fake wedding date and keep pretending? Actually go through with it? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I don't even know what's real anymore. Adrian crossed to her, his hands settling on her shoulders. Last night was real. This morning was real. The way I feel when I look at you. That's real. And the rest? The empire you run? The enemies you make? The violence? Lena met his eyes. That's real too, Adrian. I can't pretend it's not. I'm not asking you to. His grip tightened slightly. I'm asking you to decide if you can live with it, if what we have is worth the complications. Before Lena could answer, Mateo toddled over, wrapping his arms around Adrian's leg. Mr. Man, play! Adrian looked down at the child, and something in his expression softened. He picked Mateo up, settling him on his hip with surprising ease. Hey, buddy, having fun with your blocks? Big tower, Mateo declared proudly. You see? I saw. Very impressive. Adrian's tone was genuine, warm in a way Lena had never heard before. Watching them together, this dangerous man holding her son with such gentle care, something shifted in Lena's chest. This wasn't just about protection anymore. It wasn't just about attraction or convenience or survival. This was about family. Okay, she said quietly. Adrian looked up, Mateo still in his arms. Okay, what? Okay to the wedding date. To the gala. She took a breath. To trying to make this real. The hope that flashed across Adrian's face was almost painful to see. You're sure? No, but I'm willing to find out. Lena moved closer, letting Mateo grab her hand while Adrian held him. We're already in this together. Might as well see where it goes. Adrian shifted Mateo to one arm and used his free hand to cup Lena's face. I'll try to be worth it. Worth you. Just try to be honest. That's all I'm asking. I can do that. He leaned in, kissing her softly while Mateo giggled between them. Diana returned to find them like that. A strange little family, broken pieces somehow fitting together. So? She asked. Do we have a plan? Set the date, Adrian said, not taking his eyes off Lena. 3 months. Make it official. Diana's smile was knowing. I'll start making arrangements. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Diana orchestrated everything with military precision. Venue tours, menu tastings, dress fittings. The wedding might have started as a performance, but Diana was determined to make it spectacular. Even if it's fake, It needs to look real, she explained while showing Lena fabric swatches. And honestly, I'm not convinced it's fake anymore. Lena couldn't argue with that. Life at the lake house settled into a routine. Adrian still left for business in the city, but he always came back. Always. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the walls he'd built around himself began to crumble. He taught Mateo to feed the ducks at the lake's edge. He read bedtime stories in terrible voice, acting that made the toddler shriek with laughter. He held Lena at night like she was an anchor, keeping him from drifting into darkness. And Lena found herself falling deeper, past the point of no return. "I'm in trouble," she confessed to Elena during one of their weekly phone calls. "What kind of trouble?" Elena's voice was immediately concerned. "The falling in love kind." Lena watched through the window as Adrian chased Mateo around the yard, both of them laughing. "This was supposed to be temporary, protective, but it's becoming real, and I don't know how to stop it." "Do you want to stop it?" "I should. He's dangerous, Elena. The things he's capable of." Lena's voice dropped. "I've seen hints of it, the violence, the ruthlessness." "But," Elena prompted, "but he's also gentle with Mateo, patient with me, trying so hard to be better than what he was raised to be." Lena pressed her hand against the glass. "And I think I'm the reason he wants to change." "Then maybe don't fight it," Elena said gently. "Maybe just see where it goes." "What if it goes somewhere terrible? What if it goes somewhere wonderful?" Elena countered. "You've been running and hiding for so long, mija. Maybe it's time to stand still and let yourself be happy." The words stayed with Lena long after the call ended. That night she brought it up with Adrian as they sat on the dock, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and crimson. Mateo was asleep inside, Sarah keeping watch, giving them this rare moment of peace. "Diana asked me today if we wanted to do a real ceremony," Lena said. "Not just the performance, actually get married." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "What did you tell her?" "That I'd think about it." Lena drew her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. "But I've been thinking about it for weeks now, about what this is, what we are." "And what are we?" Adrian's voice was carefully neutral, but she could hear the tension beneath. "I think we're two broken people who found each other at exactly the right time." Lena turned to look at him. "I think this arrangement stopped being fake the moment you kissed me at the gala. Maybe even before that. I know I said this was business, that I needed someone trustworthy for appearances." Adrian stared out at the water. "But that was a lie I told myself because admitting the truth felt too dangerous." "What truth?" "That I noticed you months before Marcus broke that decanter. That I watched you move through my house and wondered what it would take to make you smile. That firing Marcus had as much to do with wanting you safe as it did with punishing theft." He finally looked at her. "I orchestrated this whole thing, Lena. The arrangement, the protection. All of it was an excuse to keep you close." The confession should have angered her, should have felt like manipulation. Instead, it felt like relief. "I wondered," she admitted. "The timing was too convenient. The offer too perfect." "Are you angry?" "I should be." Lena considered it. "But mostly I'm relieved, because it means I'm not crazy for feeling this way, for wanting this to be real." Adrian reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "So we do this? For real? We try. No more pretending. No more performances." Lena squeezed his hand. "Just two people figuring out if they can build something real from this mess." "I can work with that." Adrian pulled her closer, and she settled against his side, watching the last of the sunset fade to twilight. They sat like that until stars began appearing overhead, neither of them wanting to break the moment. For the first time since this had all began, Lena felt something that resembled peace. Then Adrian's phone buzzed. He checked it, and every muscle in his body went rigid. "What's wrong?" Lena asked, already knowing the answer would be bad. "Marcus is dead." The words didn't compute at first. Lena stared at him, waiting for the punchline, the explanation. "What?" "He was found in his apartment an hour ago. Apparent suicide." Adrian's face was carved from stone. "The police are calling it open and shut, note and everything." Lena's blood ran cold. "You don't believe it was suicide?" "Marcus was many things. Violent, entitled, cruel. But he wasn't suicidal. He had too much ego for that. Adrian stood, already moving toward the house. Someone killed him and made it look like suicide. And I need to find out who before they come for us next. The piece shattered like glass. Lena followed him inside, her mind racing. Who would want him dead? Anyone he crossed. His own family. Enemies I don't know about. Adrian was already on his phone making calls. Or someone trying to frame me for it. Why would someone frame you? Because I'm the one with the most obvious motive. I threatened him, destroyed his family's finances, made enemies doing it. Adrian's expression was grim. And if the police decide I'm responsible, everything I've built, everything we have, falls apart. Within an hour, the lake house was swarming with Adrian's security team. Diana arrived with legal documents. 2 of Adrian's most trusted associates showed up with information. Marcus had been found in his apartment with a gunshot wound to the head. A note confessing to abuse, to losing everything, to not being able to face the shame. His fingerprints were on the gun. No signs of forced entry. But the angle was wrong. The powder burns weren't consistent, and someone had wiped down the doorknob before leaving. It's a professional hit made to look amateur, one of Adrian's associates explained. Someone wanted him gone but needed it to look self-inflicted. Who? Adrian demanded. Could be his own family. You destroyed their finances. Maybe they decided he was a liability. The man shrugged. Could be one of his enemies. He had plenty, or someone trying to hurt me by making it look like I did it. Adrian finished the thought. Lena sat in the corner holding Mateo close even though he'd fallen back asleep. This was the world Adrian lived in, where violence was currency and death was strategy. And she'd just agreed to make it her world too. We need to get ahead of this, Diana said. The police will want to question you, Adrian. We should cooperate fully, show you have nothing to hide. Agreed. Adrian looked at Lena, his expression softening slightly. I need you to take Mateo back to the mansion. More security there. Stay inside until this is resolved. What about you? I'll handle the police. Clear my name, find out who really killed Marcus. He crossed to her, kneeling so they were eye level. But I need to know you're safe while I do it. Lena wanted to argue, to stay by his side, but Mateo stirred in her arms and she knew her first priority had to be her son. Okay, but you call me, every step of the way. I promise. Adrian kissed her forehead, then Mateo's. This will be over soon, and then we can go back to planning our very real wedding. He said it with such confidence that Lena almost believed him. The next 72 hours were a nightmare of police interviews, media speculation, and waiting. Adrian was questioned for 8 hours straight, but released without charges. The investigation continued, but without evidence linking him to Marcus's death, the police had no choice but to look elsewhere. The media, however, had no such restrictions. They speculated wildly about Adrian's involvement, about Lena's past with Marcus, about whether this was a crime of passion or calculated revenge. Lena stayed in the mansion with Mateo, watching the news coverage with growing horror as reporters dug into every aspect of their lives. Former neonatal nurse turned crime boss's fiancée. Sources say she was involved with the victim before disappearing 8 months ago. Questions remain about the convenient timing of Marcus Chen's death. Diana did damage control, releasing carefully worded statements and threatening lawsuits against the more libelous outlets. But the damage was done. Lena's name, her face, her history, all of it was now public knowledge. On the 4th day, Adrian returned to the mansion looking exhausted but triumphant. It's over, he said simply. Lena met him in the foyer, searching his face for answers. What happened? The real killer confessed, Marcus's uncle. Apparently the family decided Marcus was too much of a liability after everything that had happened. They staged the suicide to cut their losses. Adrian's smile was cold. The uncle broke under questioning and gave up everything. So you're cleared? Completely. And the Chen family is finished. Between the financial crimes and now murder, they're done. Adrian pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. It's finally over, Lena. Really over. She wanted to believe him, wanted to accept that the nightmare had ended. But she'd learned enough about Adrian's world to know that over was always temporary. Still, standing in his arms with Mateo's laughter echoing from upstairs, Lena let herself hope. Maybe this time, peace would last. Maybe this time they'd actually get their happy ending. The investigation wrapped up quickly after the uncle's confession. The media moved on to other scandals, and slowly, life began to return to something resembling normal. The wedding planning continued, now with real intention behind it. The Westfield Gala loomed on the horizon, their chance to reintroduce themselves to society as a united front. And through it all, Adrian and Lena grew closer, learning each other, building trust, creating something real from the ashes of their arrangement. 3 weeks before the gala, Adrian came home with a small velvet box. "I know you already have a ring," he said, opening it to reveal a stunning diamond that caught the light like captured fire. "But that one was part of the performance. This one is real." Lena stared at the ring, her throat tight. "Adrian, marry me. For real this time. Not because of Marcus or protection or arrangements." He took her hand, his eyes searching hers. "Because I love you. Because you've made me want to be better. Because I can't imagine my life without you and Matteo in it." The words hung in the air between them, vulnerable and honest and terrifyingly real. Lena thought about everything they'd been through, the fear, the danger, the violence, but also the tenderness, the growth, the love that had grown in the spaces between. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you, for real." Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly, like it had always been meant to be there, like she had always been meant to be here. He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. And when they finally pulled apart, Lena saw her future reflected in his eyes. It wouldn't be easy. His world would always carry danger, but they'd face it together. And that made all the difference. The ring caught the morning light as Lena poured coffee, sending rainbow fractals dancing across the kitchen walls. She still wasn't used to it. This new ring, this new life, this new version of herself who wore diamonds like they belonged there. 3 weeks had passed since Adrian's proposal, and the Westfield Gala was now just days away. "You're staring at it again," Adrian observed from the doorway, amusement coloring his tone. Lena looked up, caught. "It's beautiful. I keep thinking I'll wake up and this will all be a dream. If it is, we're both having the same one." He crossed to her, pressing a kiss to her temple before reaching for his own coffee. "Diana called. She wants to do a final walkthrough tonight for the gala. Make sure we're ready." "Ready to convince several hundred people that we're madly in love?" Lena smiled. "I think we can manage that. Considering it's actually true now, it should be easier than the first time." Adrian's hand found hers, his thumb brushing over the ring. "Though I'm still not convinced the world deserves to see you in that dress Diana picked out." The dress in question hung in Lena's closet, a stunning creation in champagne silk that made her look like she'd stepped out of old Hollywood. Diana had outdone herself, insisting that this appearance needed to erase any lingering doubts about their relationship. "It's just one night," Lena reminded him. "A few hours of smiling and socializing, and then we can come home. To our son, who will probably be building block towers with Sarah and refusing to sleep." Adrian's expression softened at the mention of Matteo. Over the past weeks, he'd transformed from awkward around the toddler to genuinely paternal, and it never failed to make Lena's heart squeeze. As if summoned by their conversation, the sound of little feet pattering down the hallway announced Matteo's arrival. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, his hair sticking up in every direction, his stuffed duck dragging behind him. "Hungry!" he declared, making a beeline for Adrian and raising his arms. "Up!" Adrian scooped him up without hesitation, settling the child on his hip. "Good morning to you too, buddy. What do we say when we want something?" Matteo considered this seriously. "Please up?" "Close enough." Adrian carried him to the table, and Lena watched them together, her son and this man who'd become so much more than she'd ever expected. Sarah appeared to help with breakfast, and the morning dissolved into the comfortable chaos of family life. It was during these moments that Lena sometimes forgot about the empire Adrian controlled, the violence he was capable of, the darkness that still lurked at the edges of his world. Here, in the morning light with their son between them, he was just a man trying to be good. But the reminder came that afternoon, as it always did. Adrian's phone rang during lunch, and she watched his expression shift from relaxed to dangerously neutral in seconds. He excused himself, stepping into his study and closing the door. When he emerged 20 minutes later, his face was carefully blank. "What's wrong?" Lena asked, recognizing the mask he wore when dealing with business. "Nothing that can't be handled," but his jaw was tight, his shoulders tense. I need to go into the city. There's a situation. What kind of situation? Adrian hesitated, clearly weighing how much to tell her. They'd promised honesty, but she knew there were parts of his world he still tried to shield her from. Someone's trying to move into territory the Chens left vacant. They're being aggressive about it, and it's causing problems. He moved to the coat closet, pulling out a jacket. I need to remind certain people that just because the Chens are gone doesn't mean their territory is up for grabs. The casual way he discussed territorial disputes sent a chill down Lena's spine. This was the reality of loving Adrian Voss. He wasn't just a businessman. He was a crime boss who maintained power through carefully calculated shows of force. Will you be safe? She asked quietly. Always am. He kissed her quickly. Diana will be here at 7 for the gala prep. I'll be back before then. But 7 came and went, and Adrian didn't return. Diana arrived with her assistant and a garment bag, her expression carefully neutral when she noticed his absence. Traffic? She suggested, though her tone suggested she knew better. Something like that. Lena tried to keep the worry from her voice. They went through the preparations mechanically, reviewing talking points, discussing who would be at the gala, confirming arrival times. But Lena's attention kept drifting to her phone, waiting for it to ring. It finally did at 8:30. Adrian's voice was clipped, professional. I'm going to be later than expected. Start without me if you need to. What happened? The situation escalated. I'm handling it. A pause, and when he spoke again, his voice softened slightly. I'm fine, Lena. I promise. Just delayed. Adrian, I love you. I'll see you soon. He hung up before she could respond. Diana watched her with knowing eyes. This is the life, you know. The waiting. The not knowing. The trusting that he'll come back in one piece. I know. Lena set down her phone. Doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. Diana's expression was sympathetic. But if it helps, he's been doing this for 20 years and he's still here. He's very good at staying alive. The reassurance was small comfort, but Lena clung to it anyway. Adrian finally returned at 10, looking tired but unharmed. He found Lena in their bedroom, the gala dress hanging nearby. Diana's notes spread across the bed. I'm sorry, he said immediately. The meeting ran long. You mean the confrontation? Lena stood, crossing her arms. Diana explained what handling a situation usually means in your world. Adrian's expression tightened. I didn't want you to worry. I'm going to worry regardless. That's what happens when you love someone who lives the way you do. She moved closer, searching his face for signs of injury. Are you hurt? Not even a scratch. The other guys can't say the same, but they'll recover. He caught her hand, pulling her against him. I hate that you worry. I hate that I have to. Lena's hands fisted in his shirt. But I knew what I was signing up for. I just need you to be honest with me. Always. I will be. I promise. He kissed her forehead, then her lips, soft and apologetic. Now, are you ready to dazzle several hundred people tomorrow night? I suppose I have to be. The next evening arrived with all the weight of a performance. Lena still wasn't entirely comfortable giving. The dress transformed her into someone elegant and untouchable, the hair and makeup completing the illusion. When she descended the stairs, she found Adrian waiting in a tailored tuxedo that made him look every inch the powerful man he was. His expression when he saw her was worth every moment of preparation. You're stunning, he said simply, his eyes tracking over her with open appreciation. You clean up pretty well yourself. Lena accepted his offered arm, trying to ignore the butterflies in her stomach. Ready to convince the world we belong together? We do belong together. That's not the performance anymore. Adrian guided her toward the car, where their security detail waited. The performance is pretending we care what they think. The Westfield Gala was even more elaborate than the Riverside event had been. The venue was a historic mansion converted into an event space, with gardens lit by thousands of twinkling lights and champagne flowing like water. Photographers lined the entrance, and the moment Adrian and Lena stepped out of their car, cameras erupted in a frenzy of flashes. Mr. Voss, Miss Hayes, over here! Is it true you've set a wedding date? Lena, how does it feel to be engaged to the most powerful man in the city? Adrian's hand was steady on her back as he guided her through the chaos, offering his practiced smile to the cameras, but saying nothing. They'd agreed beforehand to let the pictures speak for themselves. Inside, the ballroom was a vision of old-world elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over women in designer gowns and men in expensive tuxedos. Conversations paused as Adrian and Lena entered, hundreds of eyes turning to assess them. "Showtime," Adrian murmured in her ear. They moved through the crowd together, Adrian introducing her to business associates, political figures, socialites whose names Lena immediately forgot. She smiled, made small talk, played her part perfectly. And slowly, as the evening progressed, she realized something had shifted. People weren't looking at her with suspicion anymore. They were looking at her with respect, with curiosity, with the careful deference given to someone who'd captured Adrian Voss's genuine affection. Because it was genuine now. Every touch, every glance, every moment of tenderness, it was all real, and people could sense it. "You're doing beautifully," Adrian said during a quiet moment on the terrace, the sounds of the gala muted behind them. "I'm not doing anything, just being myself." Lena leaned against the railing, looking out at the illuminated gardens. "Exactly. That's what makes it work." Adrian joined her, his shoulder brushing hers. "You're not trying to be someone you're not. You're just you. And that's enough." Before Lena could respond, a woman's voice cut through the peaceful moment. Well, the happy couple." They turned to find Catherine Sterling approaching, her expression a perfect mask of social pleasantry that didn't reach her eyes. She wore a red dress that probably cost a fortune and carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. "Catherine," Adrian's tone was polite but cold. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I never missed the Westfield Gala. You know that." Catherine's eyes slid to Lena, assessing and dismissive. "Miss Hayes, you're looking well. Marriage seems to agree with you." "We're not married yet," Lena corrected gently. "No? I could have sworn I read about a ceremony being planned." Catherine's smile sharpened. "Though I suppose plans change. They often do with Adrian." The implication was clear, and Lena felt Adrian tense beside her. "The only thing that's changed," Adrian said quietly, "is that I've found someone worth actually committing to. I know that's a foreign concept for you." Catherine's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing hurt and anger before she recovered. "How charming. Well, I wish you both the best, truly." The word dripped with insincerity. "I'm sure it will be a lovely wedding, assuming it actually happens." She swept away, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and poisonous implications. "I'm sorry about that," Adrian said immediately. "Catherine has a talent for showing up where she's least wanted." "She's in love with you." Lena observed it without jealousy, just simple fact. "Or she was, and she's angry that you moved on." What I had with Catherine wasn't love, it was convenience masquerading as connection. Adrian turned to face Lena fully. "What I have with you is real. Never doubt that." "I don't." And she meant it. Whatever insecurities she'd had about their relationship had dissolved over the past weeks. "But she's going to cause problems, isn't she?" "She can try. Won't change anything." Adrian's jaw set with determination. "Let's go back inside. I want to dance with my fiancé." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of champagne, conversation, and carefully orchestrated socializing. Adrian kept Lena close, his hand rarely leaving her waist, his attention focused on her even when others demanded his time. It was nearly midnight when Diana found them, her expression urgent despite her calm demeanor. "We have a problem," she said quietly. "Catherine's been talking to reporters, saying you coerced Lena into this relationship, that it's all a cover for something illegal." Adrian's expression went deadly calm. "When?" 20 minutes ago. "It's already spreading on social media." Diana showed them her phone, where tweets and posts were multiplying by the second, all speculating about the truth behind Adrian and Lena's relationship. Lena felt her stomach drop. "What do we do?" "We control the narrative." Adrian was already moving, guiding them toward a private room off the main ballroom. "Diana, get our PR team on the phone. I want a statement ready in 15 minutes. "What kind of statement?" Lena asked, her mind racing. Adrian stopped, turning to face her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "The truth. All of it." "Adrian, we can't—" "Not about the business. Not about Marcus. But about us." His hands found her shoulders. about how we met, how I noticed you working in my house and was drawn to you, how it started as protection but became real. We give them a love story, Lena, the real one. You think that will work? I think people want to believe in love stories, especially ones that seem impossible. Adrian's expression softened. And ours is real. That's our advantage. Within 20 minutes, Diana had assembled their PR team and crafted a statement. Within an hour, it was live on every major platform. A carefully worded press release confirming that yes, their relationship had unconventional beginnings, but it had evolved into genuine love and commitment. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Some people were skeptical, others were charmed. But the conversation shifted from accusations of coercion to debates about whether love could truly bloom in such circumstances. By morning, the narrative had transformed completely. Adrian and Lena weren't a scandal anymore. They were a fairy tale. I can't believe that worked, Lena said the next day, scrolling through headlines that were surprisingly sympathetic. Never underestimate the power of a good love story. Adrian was at his desk reviewing documents, but he glanced up with a satisfied smile, especially when it's true. The next 2 months passed in a strange combination of wedding planning and continued media attention. Every detail of their upcoming ceremony was scrutinized and speculated about. Every public appearance was photographed and analyzed. But through it all, Adrian and Lena remained united, their relationship deepening with each passing day. Matteo flourished too, growing more attached to Adrian with each passing week. He started calling him Dada, which made Adrian's eyes suspiciously bright the first time it happened. The transformation of this dangerous man into a devoted father was something Lena never tired of witnessing. But the shadows of Adrian's world never fully disappeared. There were still late-night phone calls, still meetings that required security details, still moments when Lena saw the darkness in his eyes and remembered exactly who she'd chosen to love. 2 weeks before the wedding, the final piece of their complicated puzzle fell into place. Adrian came home early, which was unusual enough to make Lena look up from the book she'd been reading to Matteo. His expression was unreadable, but something in his posture suggested news. "What happened?" she asked. The legal papers came through. Marcus's parental rights were formally terminated. The uncle's confession included details about Marcus's abuse, which the court used as grounds. Adrian knelt beside her chair, his hand finding hers. He can never claim Matteo now. Ever. It's legally impossible. The relief was so overwhelming that Lena couldn't breathe for a moment. It's really over? It's really over. Adrian's smile was genuine, reaching his eyes. Matteo is legally yours. Solely, completely yours. Ours, Lena corrected softly. He's ours. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Surprise, then joy, then something deeper. You mean that? I'm marrying you in 2 weeks. That makes you his father in every way that matters. Lena cupped his face. Unless you don't want, I want. Adrian's voice was rough with emotion. I've wanted that for months now. I just didn't think you'd be ready. I'm ready. And she was. This man who'd started as a dangerous stranger had become her partner, her protector, the father of her child in every way that mattered. We're a family now, really and truly. Adrian kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. When they broke apart, Matteo was watching them with his serious toddler expression. Dada kiss mama, he observed matter-of-factly. That's right, buddy. Adrian ruffled the child's hair. Because I love mama very much. Love mama, Matteo agreed, then returned his attention to his blocks, satisfied with this explanation. Lena laughed through her tears, overwhelmed by the impossibility of this moment. A year ago, she'd been alone and terrified, hiding from a violent man and wondering if she'd ever feel safe again. Now she had a family. A real one. The wedding preparations intensified in those final 2 weeks. Diana orchestrated everything with military precision. The venue, the flowers, the guest list. Elena arrived from out of state, emotional and proud, and still slightly suspicious of Adrian despite everything. You're really doing this, Elena said the night before the wedding, watching Lena in her dress for the final fitting. I'm really doing this. Lena turned, examining herself in the mirror. The dress was simpler than the gala gowns, more elegant. white silk with delicate lace sleeves and a train that whispered against the floor. "And you're happy?" Deliriously. Lena met her friend's eyes in the mirror. "I know it's complicated. I know his world is dangerous. But Elena, he makes me feel safe and loved and like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "Then that's all that matters." Elena hugged her carefully, mindful of the dress. "Your mama would be so proud of you, mija. Look at you, survivor, fighter, about to marry a powerful man who looks at you like you hung the moon." Mike, the mention of her mother, gone for so many years now, made Lena's eyes sting with tears. She would have liked him, I think. Once she got past the whole crime boss thing. Oh, she would have had some words about that, Elena laughed. But she would have seen what I see, a man who'd burn down the world to keep you safe. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the spring weather perfect for the outdoor ceremony they'd planned. The venue was a private estate overlooking the ocean, with white flowers everywhere and chairs arranged in perfect rows. Lena dressed with Elena's help, her hands shaking slightly as reality set in. In less than an hour, she'd be married. Actually married, not performing for an audience, but making real vows to the man she loved. "You're nervous," Elena observed, fastening the last button. "Terrified," Lena admitted. "What if I mess up my vows? What if I trip walking down the aisle? What if you just let yourself be happy?" Elena turned her to face the mirror. "Look at yourself. You're beautiful, you're strong, and you're about to marry a man who worships the ground you walk on. Stop overthinking and just feel." The advice was simple but effective. Lena took a deep breath, centering herself. This was right. This was exactly where she was supposed to be. Music drifted through the open windows. The ceremony was starting. Diana appeared in the doorway, looking elegant in her role as coordinator. It's time. The walk to the ceremony site felt both endless and too short. Elena walked beside her, Matteo toddling ahead in his tiny suit, proudly carrying the rings on a small pillow with Sarah's help. The guests stood as Lena appeared, but she barely saw them. Her eyes found Adrian at the altar and locked there. He looked devastating in his tuxedo, his expression open and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen in public before. As she walked toward him, she watched his eyes grow bright with unshed tears. When she reached him, he took her hands and whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." The ceremony was a blur of words and promises, of tears and laughter from their guests. When it came time for vows, Adrian went first. "Lena, when you walked into my life, I was a man who'd convinced himself he didn't need anyone, that love was weakness and connection was liability." His voice was steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "You proved me wrong about everything. You taught me that strength comes from vulnerability, that the scariest thing I'd ever do would be opening my heart, and that loving you and Matteo would be the best decision I'd ever make. I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me. I promise to be a good father to our son and a faithful partner to you, and I promise that every day for the rest of my life, I'll work to deserve the gift of your love." Lena's tears fell freely as she spoke her own vows. "Adrian, you appeared in my life when I'd lost hope, when I thought safety was impossible and love was a luxury I couldn't afford. You offered me protection, but you gave me so much more. You gave me partnership, family, a future I'd stopped letting myself imagine. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, to love you in your light and your darkness, to be honest even when it's hard, and to choose us every single day. You've made me brave enough to believe in happy endings again, and I promise to spend the rest of my life proving that you were right to believe in us too." When the officiant pronounced them married and Adrian kissed her, the applause from their guests faded into background noise. In that moment, there was only the two of them, the promise they'd made, and the future stretching out ahead. The reception was beautiful chaos, champagne toasts, dancing, Matteo charming every guest with his serious demeanor and sudden infectious giggles. Diana had outdone herself with every detail, creating an atmosphere that felt both elegant and joyful. During their first dance, Adrian held Lena close and murmured, "No regrets?" "Not a single one." She smiled up at him. "You?" "Only that I didn't notice you sooner. We could have had more time. We have the rest of our lives." Lena leaned her head against his shoulder. "That's more than enough." Later, as the party continued around them, Lena found herself on the terrace, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and rose. Elena joined her, a glass of champagne in hand. Penny for your thoughts? Elena asked. I'm thinking about how far we've come. A year ago, I was hiding, terrified, alone except for you. Lena gestured to the celebration behind them. Look at this. Look at what my life has become. You did this. You chose to fight instead of just hide. Elena clinked her glass against Lena's. I'm proud of you, mija. I couldn't have done it without you. You kept Mateo safe when I couldn't. You never judged me for the choices I had to make. Lena's voice thick with gratitude. Thank you for everything. That's what family does. Elena hugged her. And speaking of family, your husband is looking for you. Something about cutting the cake. The word husband sent a thrill through Lena. Her husband. After everything, she had a husband who loved her and a son who was safe and a future that looked nothing like the nightmare she'd been running from. The rest of the reception passed in a golden haze of happiness. The cake was cut, the bouquet was thrown, the speeches were made. Diana's was professional and warm. Elena's was emotional and rambling. But it was Adrian's that made everyone silent. He stood with Mateo in his arms, looking out at their guests with unusual vulnerability. I'm not a man given to public displays of emotion. Most of you know that. Smiles and nods from the crowd. But today is an exception, because today I married a woman who changed everything I thought I knew about myself. Lena saw past the reputation and the power and the fear, and she decided I was worth loving anyway. That kind of faith is humbling. It's also terrifying because now I have something to lose. He looked down at Mateo, then over at Lena. I have everything to lose, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure I'm worthy of it. To my wife, the words seemed to fill him with awe. Thank you for choosing me, for trusting me with your heart and your son. I promise I'll guard both with my life. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later, as the party wound down and guests began to leave, Lena found Adrian alone in one of the gardens. He'd loosened his tie, his jacket discarded, and he looked more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Hiding from our own wedding? She teased, joining him, just taking a moment to appreciate it. Adrian pulled her into his arms. This day, this life, you. We did it, Lena said softly. We actually pulled it off. Did you doubt we would? Maybe a little, in the beginning. She smiled up at him. But not anymore. Not after everything we've been through. Adrian was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on her back. I need to tell you something. About the business. Lena's stomach clenched. What about it? I've been making changes. Slowly, carefully, but making them. He met her eyes. Getting out of the more violent aspects. Transitioning to legitimate operations. It'll take years, maybe a decade, but I'm doing it. The confession stunned her. Why? Because I want Mateo to grow up proud of his father, not ashamed. Because I want you to sleep peacefully at night without wondering if I'll come home. Adrian's expression was serious. And because you make me want to be better than what I was raised to be. I'll never be completely clean. There's too much history for that. But I can be better. For you, for our son, for our family. Oh, Lena's heart felt too big for her chest. That's all I've ever wanted. For you to try. Then that's what you'll get, every day, for the rest of our lives. Adrian kissed her softly. I love you, Lena Voss. The new name sent warmth flooding through her. I love you too. They stayed like that as the sun set completely, the sounds of the reception fading to silence. When they finally returned to the venue, Mateo was asleep in Elena's arms, exhausted from the excitement. I should get him to bed, Lena said, but Elena shook her head. I've got him for tonight. You two enjoy your wedding night. Elena's smile was knowing. He'll be fine with his tia Elena. After Elena left with the sleeping toddler and the last guest departed, Adrian and Lena stood in the empty venue surrounded by flowers and flickering candles. Alone at last, Adrian said, pulling her close. What should we do with all this privacy? Lena's tone was teasing, but her heart raced. I have a few ideas. Adrian swept her up into his arms, making her laugh. Starting with carrying my wife over the threshold of our honeymoon suite. The suite turned out to be the master bedroom of the estate, decorated with more flowers and candles, with champagne chilling and soft music playing. Adrian set Lena down gently, his hands lingering on her waist. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me, the real me, beneath all the armor and darkness. For choosing to love me anyway." Adrian cupped her face gently. "For giving me a family, a future, a reason to be better. You gave me the same things." Lena's hands covered his. "We saved each other, Adrian. That's what partners do." They came together then, all tenderness and passion, the performance finally stripped away to leave only truth. And as the night deepened around them, Lena let herself believe completely in this impossible love story they'd created. The months that followed were an adjustment, learning to live as a married couple, navigating the complexities of Adrian's world, building their family. There were still challenges, still moments when the darkness crept in, still times when Lena wondered if they'd made the right choice. But then Adrian would come home and scoop up Mateo, making the toddler shriek with laughter. Or he'd find Lena in a quiet moment and pull her close, whispering promises against her skin. Or they'd sit together as a family, watching the sunset, and Lena would feel the rightness of it all settle over her like a blanket. 6 months after the wedding, Lena returned to work part-time at Metro General's neonatal unit. It felt good to be back in scrubs, using her skills, helping tiny babies fight for life. Adrian supported her completely, adjusting his schedule to help with Mateo, hiring additional staff to make it work. "You're glowing," one of her former colleagues observed during a lunch break. "Marriage agrees with you." "It really does." Lena couldn't help but smile. "I never thought I'd say that, but it's true." A year after the wedding, they had a small celebration at the lake house, just family and close friends. Mateo was walking steadily now, talking in full sentences, growing into a bright, happy child who knew nothing of the fear and violence that had surrounded his birth. Elena visited regularly, having moved closer to be part of Mateo's life. Diana had become a genuine friend rather than just an employee. And even some of Adrian's business associates had revealed themselves to be decent people beneath the criminal veneer. "I have news," Adrian announced during the celebration, raising his glass. "As of this morning, Voss Enterprises is officially 50% legitimate businesses. The transition is ahead of schedule." The pride in his voice was evident, and Lena felt her own pride swell in response. He was doing it, actually doing it, becoming the man he wanted to be. "To progress," she toasted, raising her own glass. "To family," Adrian countered, his eyes on her and Mateo. "To love," Elena added with a smile. They drank together, and Lena looked around at the people gathered in this house that had become their home. A year and a half ago, she'd been a frightened woman working as a maid, hiding from a violent man and wondering if she'd ever feel safe again. Now she stood in a home filled with love, married to a man who'd moved heaven and earth to protect her, raising a son who would grow up knowing he was cherished and safe. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been fear and danger and moments when Lena thought everything would fall apart, but they'd survived. More than survived, they'd thrived. That night, after everyone had gone home and Mateo was asleep, Lena found Adrian on the dock where they'd had so many important conversations. The moon reflected off the still water, and the night was peaceful. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, settling beside him. "How different my life looks now compared to 2 years ago." Adrian's arm came around her shoulders. "How much better it is." "No regrets about the changes? About leaving parts of your empire behind?" "Not a single one." He pulled her closer. "I have you. I have Mateo. I have a future that isn't just about power and fear. That's worth more than any empire." Lena leaned her head against his shoulder, breathing in the night air and the scent of his cologne and the promise of tomorrow. "I love you, Adrian Voss." "I love you, Lena Voss." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Thank you for saving me." "Thank you for saving me right back." They sat like that until the moon rose high overhead, two broken people who'd found each other and built something whole from the pieces. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy. Adrian's past would always cast shadows, and danger would never fully disappear from their lives. But they'd face it together, as partners, as family, as two people who'd learned that sometimes the most unlikely love stories turned out to be the most real. And in the end, that was more than enough. It was everything.